What up? What up? What up? How's everybody doing? Welcome to another episode of the Sports PSP podcast, the highlight of Friday nights, as Undisputed World Champ has always claimed. Hope everyone is enjoying a beautiful, fantastic Friday. Hope everyone had a wonderful day coming off work, school, whatever the case may be. I am your host, Sports PSP. I got my panel with me, BRF Sports, one of my brothers from Georgia. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good, PSP. Always a pleasure to share the stage with you. Always a pleasure to share the stage with Champ. Another good week of work in. Hey, I feel like this. Another day, you get to be above ground is always a blessing, and I'm always blessed to share the stage with you. So I'm definitely ready for another great edition of this podcast. I'm ready to get it popping. Hope y'all brothers are living good, doing all right. So always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And of course, we can't start the Sports PSP podcast without my main man, Undisputed World Champ. By the way, congratulations to Champ. His fourth degree, man. Fourth degree. Not one, not two, not three, but 4 degrees. The man is a brilliant brother. Hey, offensive lineman, he always defends y'all. If you need an attorney, Champ Pryor is your man. But happy as always to have you, brother. Congratulations on your success. Please go subscribe, like, and subscribe to his podcast, his IG, TikTok, YouTube. How you doing, brother?
I have to salute you for that. I didn't expect that. I appreciate that. That was good. I like that. That's man. I'm lost for words. I thank you from the heart for that, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it feels good to be a graduate once again, man. And hey, man, look, cybersecurity, here I come. So I mean, I'm just happy to be winning, man, and I'm happy to be on the highlight of Friday nights. What better way to top off a victory like graduation than to be on my favorite podcast on Friday, the Sports PSP podcast. So this is a hell of a graduation present for me to be on the Sports PSP podcast, bro.
Absolutely, man. Always a honor and a pleasure to having you on the show, man. Fellas, I know March Madness. Champ, I'm gonna let you go first. What have been the games, men's or women's, you've checked out that you've been pretty impressed so far?
Look, I will look no further than the CEO herself, Coach Don Staley, because they just beat the brakes off of Tennessee Tech. I think it was early today or either last night. I forget because I've been celebrating, but they beat the brakes off of Tennessee Tech. They beat them 105-45.
Mm-hmm.
They beat them like they stole a gold Porsche off somebody's house. I'm just being real. And look, I know people are going to say, look, that nobody's paying attention to the women's side because, CC's no longer there. But that is indeed a lie. These group of young women, this is a star-studded women's tournament. You have Flau'jae Johnson, you have Merrill, you have Paige Beckers, of course, who's more than likely a shoe-in in order to win the number one, in order to be the number one overall pick. You have Olivia Miles. They just demolished the team up there just this past day.
You have
say again?
Juju.
Yeah, I was getting to that. Juju Watkins. I'm glad you was able to walk me through that. But there's
Great
a line
of great minds.
Yes, indeed, man. Yeah, you should be walking on that stage with me, man. But it being National Women's History Month, man, I don't think a lot is being said about this one. I know people are trying to sell this tournament short because the cash cow is now in the WNBA and not the college game. But make no mistake, these young women, this is a star-studded cast out here in women's college basketball. There's a lot of great talent that's coming into the WNBA. And one of its best players just got eliminated today from Iowa State. She put up 26 and 7, and the team still got upset. One of the best players. So, I mean, let's pay attention to these young women today and for the rest of the tournament. We should not stop supporting the women's game just because two of the main players, well, I'll say a few of the main players went to the NBA. I understand that a lot of eyeballs was watching because of Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Rakia Jackson, Cameron Brink, and all of those young, wonderful young women. But let's not take our eyes off of the young women that's coming into the game. Flau'jae Johnson is going to be a hell of a player. Juju is going to be a hell of a player when she comes out. Paige is going to be a hell of a player when she comes out. And one can argue, had Paige not gotten hurt, it would have been her instead of Caitlin Clark last year. A lot of people will make that argument. So let's not forget about these young women and the contributions that they're making. Like I said, I understand the best player is, well, the face of the league and the face of basketball, of women's basketball, is now in the WNBA and not necessarily in the tournament. But let's pay attention to these young women and continue to support them at this point. Because guess what? Just because one great player is in the WNBA now, let's pave the way so these women can be able to make a case to get paid in the WNBA so they can start getting tens of millions of dollars. As long as we support it, that can open the door for them. So let's continue to support these young women, man.
Well said. BRF.
Yeah, like I told you before the show, like I've been working through a lot of the early afternoon games, so I really haven't had a chance to really kind of really pay attention to it like I want to, because like I said before, March Madness is definitely, it's like one of my favorite times of the year, and it's something I really like to try to tune in, but I just haven't had a chance to. I will say this though, as an SEC guy and as a Georgia guy, seeing what Gonzaga did to those boys when the Georgia Bulldogs came in with some decent momentum after the season that they had and beating some pretty good teams in SEC play, for Gonzaga to basically dog walk them the way they did, that was impressive. Like the fact that like they were like a AC coming into the tournament, people like they're that low, like they're one of those they're one of those 8 seeds that that could possibly make a run, Sweet 16, Elite 8. They're one of those that could kind of make a run. So that's probably like one of the more impressive things I've seen so far. Just a statement win like that. At one point, it was 27-3 in the first half. It was 27-3. I mean, you and the game, and Georgia actually tried to make a game of it, but the game ended up being 89-68. I mean, it was a dog walk. So shout out to Gonzaga. That's probably the most impressive thing I've seen on the men's side so far, just from the momentum that the Georgia Bulldogs was coming in, as far as being in that Gonzaga tier, as being a team with the resume that they have, beating the Texas, beating Florida, beating other good teams, to have a shot to really make a run at this. So Gonzaga was impressive. And yeah, and the thing is, he was talking about the women, like he didn't even mention Georgia Amore. He didn't mention Malaysia Fawali from South Carolina. I mean, the women's tournaments is full, just loaded of talented players that 1 year, 2 year, 3 years down the road are gonna really start to flood the WNBA, and really we're really gonna see like the first true test as far as like parity in the WNBA, as far as like having like a lot of really good players spread out through these teams, and maybe potentially seeing more teams as far as like competing, and just seeing the WNBA really grow to a level of stardom that they haven't really seen, really, I would probably say, since the early inception of the WNBA. So it's definitely a breath of fresh air seeing the women's game really being elevated to a higher level. And yeah, man, like Champ said, like the demise of women's basketball with Caitlin Clark being gone has been greatly exaggerated, because these girls are here to play, and these girls are here to show up and show out. So I am gonna hopefully over the weekend start tuning in to some of these games being off, and hopefully really start to kind of key in on what's going on. So I'm definitely excited of the potential of what I'm about to see this weekend. But I would say between both so far, the most impressive thing I've seen so far is probably what Gonzaga did to Georgia, with the momentum Georgia was coming in with, and for Gonzaga to put the hammer down. It really showed why they've been one of the more dominant and more impressive college basketball powerhouses really over the last decade and a half. So shout out to the Gonzaga Bulldogs, man. Hey, They were the better Bulldogs that day. That's all I'm gonna say about that. They were the better ones.
Honestly, y'all, I haven't been paying that much attention to the March Madness, kind of like with BRF, because I've been so preoccupied with a lot of other things. But I was able to take some time to watch the Florida Norfolk State game that Walden Jr. from Florida. Boy, he can shoot. And I watched a little bit of North Carolina Ole Miss men's basketball game. That was a close one. What a big time three by the Ole Miss player, though. But I haven't been paying as much attention to the college basketball folks. I'm sorry, but don't worry. Kalen, I'll go to the office. That's my good friend, the manager at the office. Yes, we will have a couple of drinks and we will talk about some stuff. And yes, Kalen loves my ideas. I will definitely get her entertained for WrestleMania because all of us are WrestleMania guys, wrestling dudes. But I can't wait to watch more of the basketball during the weekend. I want to see more of the women's and I want to see more of the men's side. But that's all I really got to say. But fellas,
and one more quick thing before we move on. Shout out to McNeese State. Shout out to McNeese State. I love seeing double digit teams pulling up, but double digit ranked teams pulling off upsets to knock out Clemson like that. Shout out McNeese State. I love seeing 12 seeds. I love seeing 12, 13 seeds pull those shockers off. I love seeing that. Shout out to McNeese State.
That's the beauty of March Madness. Everyone loves all them Cinderella stories, and we're getting them.
You know who went to McNeese State, right?
Who did, champ?
Joe Dumars from the Bad Boy Pistons. He's an alumnus.
Yes, he did.
So shout out to the great Joe Dumars in McNeese State. I'm pretty sure he's proud right now.
He sure is.
Most definitely.
But fellas, let's get to the pigskin. NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals. Boy, they took care of their wide receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Jamar Chase got a 4-year, $161 million contract. Champ, he's now the highest non-quarterback in the NFL. It was Myles Garrett for a little bit, but now it's Jamar Chase. I'm reading it here from an article from Sports Illustrated's Andy Nesbitt. Jamar Chase's 4-year, $160 million contract has $73.9 million fully guaranteed at signing, which is $41.17 million in base salary, a roster bonus and per game roster bonuses for 2025, and a $32.73 million in base salary and a roster bonus for 2026. His 2-year total is $75 million, with another $1.1 million in per game roster bonuses for 2026, not fully guaranteed until next March. And then T. Higgins, 4-year, $115 million contract, $30 million fully guaranteed at signing, a $20 million roster bonus this March, and a $10 million roster bonus next March. Interestingly, his $13.8 million base for this year is not yet guaranteed. So I'm happy for the wide receivers getting paid because, champ, you've made the argument. If the Cincinnati Bengals lose both their targets, if you're Joe Burrow, I do everything I can to get up out of here in Cincinnati. But here's the thing, champ, and I'm happy that they got their money. And I love Joe Burrow. But you've been an advocate. I'm telling you right now, even though Champ's wearing the suit and the cap, but make no mistake about it, outside, he'd probably be wearing a suit and tie and be in court for them offensive linemen. Quarterback cannot throw behind his back. Offensive lineman, if you need somebody to advocate for you, look no further than Champ Pryor from Columbus, Georgia. Just give him a call and he'll represent you on your behalf. Trust me, you need someone as articulate and as knowledgeable as Champ Pryor. I mean, he may deny it all he wants, but Champ Pryor will speak for the big fellas. Champ, you've been on the record saying quarterback cannot throw behind his back. Yes, I'm glad for Joe Burrow. They took care of their weapons. But in the end, how's this going to help out Cincinnati? Because you look at Pittsburgh, they're not going to, whether Aaron Rodgers met with the team, I don't know. And if I'm Cam Hayward, I agree with everything he said. I ain't no interested in darkness retreat. Either you're gonna be a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers or not. Now, Cleveland, well, that's a story for another day. We won't get into that. And then when you look at Baltimore, they're still the team in the AFC North, in my opinion. Champ, although they took care of their wide receivers, Cincinnati still has a lot of needs they have to address. And plus, Trey Henderson. So he may sit out for the 2025 season if he doesn't get his money. And Mike Brown, well known for being cheap. I mean, go look at the stories of TJ Houshmandzadeh. Go look at all the stories of all. I mean, he's cheap. I mean, he's so cheap he makes government cheese look affordable. That's how Mike Tomlin is. But Champ, I'm gonna let you go. What were your thoughts about the contract extensions?
Look, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Number one, he did re-sign him, but there's a but on there. T. Higgins' contract, rumor has it, is a year-to-year guarantee, and it's no cap hit from year to year. So, yeah, I mean, although he got him on the wash, but he retrieved it on the wrench. So his contract is really year to year. So that's what rumor has. But I applaud them for keeping that offense together. I mean, it's kind of like what it's kind of like what they did before with TJ Houshmandzadeh and Chad Johnson. And they kept Chris Henry, God rest his soul, together. And what the Indianapolis Colts did with Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne, they kept them together for a certain amount of time. But there's a but on there. There's a but on there. You still have not got that O-line together. Come on now. Y'all ain't figured it out yet? Y'all ain't figured it out. The first thing that Chicago did is when it got Joe Thuney. That's the first thing they did. So, number one, you're missing offensive lineman. Number two, you're about to lose your best pass rusher on a very lackluster defense as it is. So once you lose him, because you can rest believe, a team is licking their chops right about now, seeing how they can get him. Don't be surprised if Ted, I be wanting to call him Ted Hendrickson so bad. Don't be surprised if Hendricks ends up going to the Philadelphia Eagles. Don't be surprised. Or the Commanders. Or the Commanders. Don't be surprised if he goes to either one of those teams, because the Eagles just lost Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. So don't be surprised if that happens. But I digress. And you have to address your defense. I can understand keeping offense together, but there's been too many times throughout NFL history we've seen these very, very high-powered offense, and they don't necessarily succeed. We saw Air Coryell. Need I say more? We saw people want to talk about Air Coryell, the Don Coryell offense. They talk about seeing it in San Diego. We also saw it in St. Louis when they were the Cardinals with O.J. Anderson. So we saw that iteration of it twice. Then we seen the New Orleans Saints, although they won that one Super Bowl, but they had a lot of years where they was top in rushing yards, top in passing yards, top in completion percentage. But it was pretty much empty stats at a certain point, because they had no defense. And if you need any more evidence, look at what happened with Matt Ryan after the Super Bowl appearance. Our defense went down and down and down. And guess what? You didn't have anything to match that high-powered offense that we still had left with Julio, with Calvin Ridley, with some of the other players that we had, Austin Hooper. So it's scary what they're going to do on offense, but as you know, you can't outgun everybody every day. There's going to be some games, especially during bad weather games, where your offense can't draw mud. It happens. And you're going to be in some close games with defenses. You're not going to be able to just spread it around through the air. You're going to have to depend on your defense. And when that happens, you're going to lose a hell of a lot of games that you're supposed to win. That's what happens. Right now, your best pass rusher, he wants out. I'll go back to the Air Coryell team. We saw this happen with them. It's just history repeating itself. I never forget. I think it was 1981. Fred Dean, Hall of Famer. He was part of that San Diego Chargers defense, and he was their best defensive player. He was their best defensive player. They didn't want to pay him. Now, the Air Coryell offense, they had offense galore. They had John Jefferson. They had Wes Chandler. They had Charlie Joyner. They had Kellen Winslow Senior, excuse me. Not to mention, to add insult to injury, they had Chuck Muncie, who's a very underrated running back. Matter of fact, led the league in rushing in 1981. But without Fred Dean, they lost a lot of games that they were supposed to win simply because they didn't have the defense. And do you know what happened in that same year? Fred Dean got traded in the middle of the season. Where did he go? To the San Francisco 49ers and won them a Super Bowl. Now he's in the Hall of Fame. I can see something like that happening with Trey Hendrickson, leaving Cincinnati, high-powered offense, then going straight up there to Philadelphia. Or since they missed out on getting the other Bosa brother, or even the San Francisco 49ers themselves, and being able to get them into a hump. So I like the signings. It goes to prove to the front office. It goes to prove to the rank and file. It goes to prove to the players that we're here to win. I like the signing. But the thing is, what are you going to do about your defense? We've seen very, very few teams win Super Bowls when your team is at the bottom of the league in offense. Hell, even the greatest show on turf, they had a great pass rusher on their team by the name of Kevin Carter, and they had London Fletcher. They had key defensive players that can make plays. San Francisco as well. So when you talk about these great offenses, we've seen way too many times where, hey, you may have a great offense, but the defense is lackluster, and so you're not going to get very far. Like I said, prime example of that in recent memory would be the New Orleans Saints. They won that Super Bowl in 2010, and if you ask me, they could have won more. And like I said, as a Falcons fan, I hate to say that, but you got to give credit where credit is due. They could have won more had they had a defense. And even the year they won the Super Bowl, their defense was at the bottom of the league. So they have to address some things on that defensive side of the ball. They should do nothing less than address that defense. You have to address that defense, and you have to address that offensive line. Because as John McKay said, the late, great John McKay from USC, battles are won and lost in the trenches. If you ain't got the offensive line and the defensive line in order to do that, you're going to lose a hell of a lot of games, but you're supposed to win. And guess what? I love the signing. I'm glad those young men were able to get their money, and you're keeping this core together. But again, what about that defense? What about that O-line? What about the running game? We already seen, well, I think his name was Chase Brown. Chase Brown rushed for over 900 yards, but he had injuries going down the stretch. Are you going to bring him back? You got to address a lot of things. And just because you have the biggest names that are signed doesn't mean your work is done. Because we've seen big names get signed by you before. We saw you sign Carson Palmer, TJ Houshmandzadeh, and Chad Johnson. Then right behind that, on top of that, you get a good running back from the Chicago Bears by the name of the late, great Cedric Benson. You had all of that. but you lost a lot of games that you should have won because you didn't have the defense. So I'm still worried about the Cincinnati Bengals, although you've signed those guys. Because although the core's there, you have no defense, and the O-line is still, and you get off the slow starts at the beginning of the season. So what's going to happen? You get off to another slow start at the beginning of the season. You're going to have all of this offense, no defense, and now you finna get 40 put up on you by a team like the Oakland Raiders who ain't got no business scoring a point. You have to win the games you're supposed to win, and without a good defense, you're not going to win. Without at least a decent defense, you're not going to win.
If you look at the Cincinnati Bengals defensively, I'm reading it now from Pro Football Reference. They were 21st in the NFL in passing defense. They were also 19th in rushing defense, scoring defense 25th, and in team defense, they were 25th in the NFL. BRF, what are your thoughts about the signings of both T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase?
From an offensive standpoint, I definitely do like the signings because they needed to keep that offensive core together, and that offensive core should be able to make a statement for years to come. The problem is you got all this money tied up in the offense, and understandably so, but now what do you do as far as the offense? Because I feel like Trey Hendrickson is as good as gone, because what money do you have left to give to him? So I think he's good as gone, and like y'all were talking, y'all brought up the Philadelphia Eagles, you brought up the Washington Commanders. Those are two really good fits for him in terms of how their coaching staff like to operate, as far as like how they like to call their play, how they like to call their defenses schematically. Dan Quinn being in Washington, being a very, very he's predicated as far as his pass rush, as far as getting to the quarterback. And Trey Hendrickson would be a perfect guy that he could build that defense around, as far as being able to get to the quarterback. Because let's face it, Trey Hendrickson, over the last few years, he's arguably been one of the top 5 pass rushers in the National Football League, because he's just been that consistent. But also he fits with the Philadelphia Eagles scheme just because of because of their front seven in general, and how ferocious they can be, and how Vic Fangio just loves to take advantage of like certain situations and how they scheme to certain downs, particularly in pass rush situations. And you add a guy like Trey Hendrickson, regardless of Philly losing Josh Sweat and Milton Williams, they're still full of athletes. I mean, look no further than guys like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Nolan Smith, and they're getting Nakobe Dean back from his injury. I mean, bro, that's like four Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, that's just the depth. That's the depth of of our university as far as like what they're bringing up. But that's just the Philadelphia Eagles scouting department. That's Howie Roseman and these guys just recognizing the best fits and the best players to fit their scheme, and just knowing how to operate and knowing how to get the job done. So those are two very optimistic, ideal spots for Trey Hendrickson. So
if I'm Cincinnati, I trade him, because my thing is, if I don't have enough,
I agree. I think you have to, because you have to at this point. If you don't have the money, if you're not going to be able to have that money, and you're not going to be tied into him, you have to at least get something. You got to get something for him, whether it's a serviceable player or some draft capital. Honestly, I'm trading him. I'm getting draft capital, and come the NFL draft, if you're going to address that defense and that O-line anywhere, if you can't do it in free agency, you're going to have to do it in the draft. There's pass rushers available. There are going to be linebackers available. There are going to be offensive linemen available. You have to address the front seven. You have to address the O-line. You have to address the trenches in this draft, because I'm telling you right now, even though that core is locked in, I mean, let's face it. I mean, they're not going to get younger. I mean, Joe Burrow's what, 28, 29 already, and he's been injury prone, and a lot of that is due to having a very, very porous offensive line, not being able to protect him to take unnecessary hits. And Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins, they are definitely young. They are arguably, I think right now, they're probably the best duo in football. I think they're the best duo in football. I think A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith has an argument. I think Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison has an argument, and there are a few other wide receiver duos that has an argument. But I think right now, when you look at their body of work, the fact that Jamar Chase has been in top 3 conversations almost his entire career since he got into the league. When you look at a guy like T. Higgins, who as the number 2 receiver, has 2,000-yard seasons under his belt. So I feel like his resume, more than anything, was what commanded $115 million in a new contract. Because I feel like the only other number 2 right now who you could say might be on T's level right now is probably Puka Nacua with the Rams. If you want to throw Devontae Smith in there, possibly. But I think T. Higgins is up there as far as being the best number 2 wide receiver in the game right now. So even though Cincinnati they needed to do this, because I promise you, T. Higgins would have got number 1 money. I think he has the ability to be a number 1 receiver in just about every franchise there is who doesn't already have a number 1. He could come in and immediately push them over, and some of those places with a number 1, he could possibly push them over because he's that talented a wide receiver. But if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals and you're looking at the Trey Hendrickson situation, you gotta get some draft capital for him at this point, because you're not gonna be able to sign him. I mean, that's $276 million you just tied up into your number 1 and your number 2 wide receiver. You have to acquire something for Trey Hendrickson at this point. You have to trade him. You look at a team like Philly, like you said. Philly's always ready to wheel and deal. They are not scared to give away some draft capital. They are never scared to give away draft capital.
What if I told you about Howie Roseman?
He's never scared. Yeah, he's the best executive in football. I mean, he's the best executive in football. He is never scared to make a big time deal to give up some draft capital if it means he's bringing in an impact player that could help him contend and possibly win another championship. He would not be scared. And the Washington Commanders with Josh Harris and Irvin Magic Johnson, you think they're seeing the culture that they're starting to cultivate with Washington, a winning culture. They're starting to bring that back with Washington. You don't think a team like that wouldn't be willing to give up a little bit of draft capital to bring in a Trey Hendrickson? You want to talk about a division shattering move possibly? You add Trey Hendrickson to the Washington Commanders. Y'all, folks just don't understand. A guy like Trey Hendrickson could really shift power in any division if he joins a team who's like on the cusp of doing something special. Trey Hendrickson could be that type of player for Washington to swing the pendulum from Philly to them going into 2025 to potentially win the NFC East, because even though Philly's going to be the favorite to win a division, a team is not a lock that they're going to win it again with a team like Washington, especially if they bring in a Trey Hendrickson. But so Cincinnati, I feel like they're going to be a bunch of teams coming and calling and knocking at their door to try to acquire Trey Hendrickson. They have to, if at this point you got to find the best deal possible, you have to bring in the most draft capital you can for a Trey Hendrickson to address that O-line and to address that defense. Because I'm telling you right now, it's not going to do them any good if they're scoring 30 and they're giving up 35. It's not going to do them a bit. It's not going to do them a bit of good. And we've seen that too many times where some of the greatest offenses in the history of the league did not succeed and ultimately win championships, because it was always one or multiple things that held them back. And 9 times out of 10, it was usually the defense could not catch up to what the offense was bringing on a weekly basis. We've seen it too many times. Us being in Georgia, we saw it way too many times. Way too many times. I mean, 2016, 7th best scoring offense in league history. And that defense was like bottom half, like in the 20s, as far as being able to keep, as far as giving up yards and stuff like that. So Cincinnati, if they want to contend and win the AFC North, because Baltimore is not going anywhere. Pittsburgh might be on the fence, but I mean, let's face it, it's still the Pittsburgh Steelers. And say what you want about Mike Tomlin having winning seasons, if Mike Tomlin's there, they're gonna be around. They're going to be around. They need to do something to shore up the front 7 and O-line to have a chance to win the AFC North, because that is a division winning offense, but that is a top 5 draft pick defense. They need to do something to address that pronto.
I would love to see Trey Hendrickson with Washington, considering the fact that we lost Dante Fowler Jr. and we needed depth on that D line position. Because I've told Champ before, we moved on from Chase Young, Montez Sweat, and Jonathan Allen. I had no problem moving on with Chase Young and Jonathan Allen. I was more upset losing Montez, Champ. I told you about Montez.
Yes,
But Trey Hendrickson, if we're Washington, you saw the year that we had coming off the NFC Championship game. Now, I don't see Washington having the type of season that they had last year, Champ, because, again, no expectations. There's going to be expectations. Washington could win the division because if you look at Philadelphia this offseason, a lot of key departures. You know, Darius Slade gone, Josh Sweat gone. And look, Philly's moving in a direction. They're looking to a younger direction. They might do something in the draft. We'll never know. With Howie Roseman there, you never know. But if you're Washington, I got to admit, you've had a really good offseason. I mean, you did pick up Laramie Tunsil, so now you added depth to the O-line, Champ. Sam Cosmi is coming back. If you're Washington, you need a pass rusher. I mean, you need somebody. I mean, it can't just be Daron Payne. It's got to be somebody else who can get after the quarterback. And plus, we also have to stop the run. Like I said before, Washington was 30th in the NFL in stopping the run. I think with Trey Hendrickson, and plus, he has played in the Super Bowl. So he has playoff experience, and he can actually help out Washington. And Washington is all about building a culture. Mm-hmm. Who knows? This actually may be a good year for Washington to win the division, because you look at the Cowboys heading with free agency. I don't think they did that bad, though, but it wasn't enough. And when you look at the Eagles, they lost some pieces, and again, they're moving to a different direction. If you're Washington, you might as grab it and capitalize it as much as you can. But if you're Trey Hendrickson, you want to go to a team that's a championship contender, whether the Eagles, Commanders, or whoever it may be. I would love to see him in Washington. But speaking of the NFC East, Jameis Winston, or as Champ called him, Martin Luther King Winston, found a home to the New York Giants. The Giants have signed Jameis Winston to a 2-year, $8 million deal that can reach $16 million with incentives. Jameis Winston last season threw for 2,121 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions with a 61.1 completion percentage in 12 games and 7 starts last season with the Cleveland Browns. This for the New York Giants. New York Giants. Intriguing, because I mentioned before, they haven't had that much of a history of black quarterbacks, though. Okay, when the last time, you got to go back to what, Geno Smith, I think 2017 or 2018 at the time, when Eli Manning got benched. The Giants have the 3rd overall pick. They have to make a serious decision with that pick. Jameis Winston is risky. First of all, if you're Malik Neighbors, you're going to be happy, because you saw the year Jared Jeudy had. Madden ratings, Woody Johnson. So imagine what he could do with Malik Neighbors, who's coming off a Pro Bowl rookie season. You see Malik Neighbors putting up crazy numbers. But with Jameis Winston, he 50-50. I mean, if he were winning games, he'd be the black Brett Favre, because he's a quarterback that has a cannon, that has no conscience, but at the same time, them turnovers, he's the first quarterback in NFL history to have 30 for 30. But Jameis Winston for the New York Giants, I think they just brought him in because, again, they missed out on the chance of getting the number 1 overall pick. I mean, had they had the number 1 overall pick, they probably would go with a Cam Ward. And outside of Cam Ward, listen, folks, say whatever you want about Shedeur Sanders' attitude and stuff. And Champ, he did a TikTok video and he commended me for it. Hey, if you're San Francisco or any other team out there, why don't you look at a shot at Shedeur Sanders? Hell, if you're Pittsburgh, you may look at Shedeur Sanders, because why on earth would you bring in Aaron Rodgers? No. Keep Russell Wilson for another year, draft a quarterback, let him sit behind Russell Wilson, and maybe in the next year or so, that quarterback could come in. Only way that rookie quarterback can start is unless Russell Wilson plays awful or, God forbid, he's injured. But if you're the New York Giants with Jameis Winston, if you're Malik Neighbors, you're going to put up some numbers because Jameis Winston is capable of giving you some big-time performances, but he is also capable of giving you 3 or 4 interceptions. So he's risque. He's 50-50. Either way, it's still not going to be enough for the New York Giants, though, to compete. But I kind of like it if you are a fantasy football owner, because Jameis Winston is unpredictable. So BRF, I'll let you go first. Okay. What are your thoughts about the Giants signing Jameis Winston and much more?
It's also kind of funny because you can go back to that clip during Super Bowl week where
Jameis Winston Saquon. He asked Saquon Barkley.
Exactly. When Jameis Winston was at the media day and asked Saquon, "Where do you think I should go?" And Saquon flat out with a straight face said, "You should." And the Giants looking for somebody, and hey, full circle moment, man. The Giants signed him. And first off, quick before I get into it, shout out to the Minnesota Vikings. They're not going after Aaron Rodgers. They are all in on JJ McCarthy. It's the right thing to do. So shout out to Minnesota Vikings for manning up and making the right decision from that standpoint. At this point, Aaron Rodgers needs to either go. He need to retire as far as I'm concerned. But that's another conversation for another day. As far as Jameis Winston is concerned, 2 years, $8 million, incentives could knock it up to 16. I think there's a possibility, even if they draft a quarterback, he could be the starter day. He could be the starter day one. And honestly, I think that's why the New York Giants are bringing him in. I think they're bringing him in to be the bridge. That way, if they do draft a quarterback, he could come in. Lord, my niece is literally singing in the bathtub right now. She is just letting it go right now. But yeah. They brought him in to be the bridge. I think he's going to be the bridge. I still think it definitely doesn't rule off them drafting a quarterback. I still think, me personally, I think they're going to draft a quarterback, whether it be Cam or Shedeur. I seriously still think they're going to draft someone at the quarterback spot. I just think Jameis is going to be a nice bridge. Like Jameis Winston is one of those quarterbacks. He could give you 4,000 yards. He could give you 30 touchdowns, and your team can still go 5-12. I mean, that's Jameis Winston, and that's how he operates. That's just who he is as a quarterback. Because I mean,
Champ did say called him Martin Luther King Winston. There's a lot of Martin Luther King Winston neighborhoods in Newark. He can go down there.
Well, hey, I mean, Martin Luther King Winston, Mr. 30 for 30. I mean, crab legs himself. I mean, homeboy got all type of nicknames. But one thing you cannot knock Jameis Winston for: the man has, like you said in the monologue before we got this thing popping, he is not scared. He does not have a conscience. He trusts that right arm of his to make all the throws. Whether he makes all the throws or not, he has full confidence in that gun. That's one thing I will not knock Jameis Winston for. He's got confidence in his arm. He's going to try to make all the throws. If I'm Malik Neighbors and you see a quarterback like Jameis Winston with his type of arm and let's face it, he does have arm talent. I mean, it doesn't always equate.
Number one.
Exactly. That's why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took a shot at him with the number 1 overall draft pick. That's why they took a shot on him. So he's not scared. And if I'm Malik Neighbors and I'm seeing that Jameis Winston with that type of arm talent and that type of strength and that type of ability, you have to be excited for the potential if Jameis Winston doesn't turn the ball over. Jameis Winston is a turnover machine, to say it lightly. So like I said, there are going to be some. I promise you, Jameis Winston is going to have at least a couple of those games where he just goes like it's going to be like a 28 for 44, 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interception type of game. Don't be surprised. I mean, he is like you said, he is 50-50 to the highest degree. Don't be surprised if he has at least 2 or 3 of those games this year where he just lights up fantasy football scoreboards, but he gives the game away on the real scoreboard. Just don't be surprised if he has a couple of those games. So, but if I'm Malik Nabers, I'm excited about the prospect of Jameis Winston, but I still think he is a bridge for whoever I feel like they're going to ultimately draft as far as the quarterback position. I still think they're going to draft somebody. Are there other options there? Maybe. I mean, you look at it's the New York Giants. They have a lot of holes. They have holes in the offensive line. They have holes in the front seven. They have holes in the secondary. If it wasn't for Tyrone Tracy busting out, they'd have a hole in the running back position. I mean, they have holes everywhere on this team. So they have to really address that in the draft. And I mean, and honestly, particularly that secondary, like there are some corners and safeties to be had in this draft. I feel like they would at 3. I think any DB at 3 might be a reach. But I mean, if you're the New York Giants, all options are possible. All things are open with the New York Giants at the number 3 overall pick, because they are a bad team with a lot of holes. So I am intrigued to see.
They could look at O-line.
That's what I was saying. They got holes everywhere, and I mentioned it. They got holes everywhere. I think. Let's see. I think Andrew Thomas is still there. I think he's really the only good offensive lineman that they have. But outside of that, it's like ugh. I mean, that's the rest. That's the New York Giants O-line outside of Andrew Thomas. It's just bad. It's bad. So they like I said, they got holes there. They got holes on the defense. So all things are possible when it comes to that pick with the New York Giants. So we'll see what they do. But this is probably one of the more. I'll say this: it's exciting from the standpoint, I feel like the Jameis Winston Malik Nabers connection is going to do some damage, because Malik Nabers has. Like, you got rookies like him and Brian Thomas Jr. who've already come into the league and established themselves and put their names in the top 10 wide receiver conversation. Because some people would argue they're already there if they're not there. I mean, that just shows the explosiveness and the talent that both of these guys have. LSU, shout out LSU. You and Ohio State over the last few years are turning into wide receiver U type schools. Y'all have put out some beasts at the wide receiver positions. And honestly, I wasn't shocked when we talked about. We were looking at both. We were talking. I think honestly, we were talking about both of these guys draft time last year, and I felt like both of them were about to do some damage. And sure enough, they were both Pro Bowlers, both Pro Bowlers. So Malik Nabers should be happy with the Jameis Winston signing. He's going to try to get him the ball as much as possible. The wins, I don't think they're gonna come, because the Giants just have too many holes. If nothing else, them Jameis Winston quotations, especially with the New York media, it's gonna be some of the most fun we've had all season.
Well, I know Champ and Jameis, they're probably going to be going to church every single Sunday before Jameis be going to play football. And if Jameis gives them lackluster performances, fans are going to be like this.
Shit.
Trust me, I would know. I live in the New Jersey, New York area. I would know a thing or two about that fan base in the media. If Jameis puts up them lackluster performances, undisputed world champ, talk to me.
All right. Let me get back to it. Oh, damn. Vince McMahon. Good
Was
God.
not expecting that on a Friday night, but let's get it popping.
Yeah, let's get it popping. Ooh. Boy, that controversy aged you perfectly, didn't it? But he early as hell. Look at it. Good God.
Look like a male Cruella DeVille with that gray right there.
Yeah. Look like he was on the Sopranos when it went out of style.
Yeah.
Look like the Tubin version. Look like the Tubin version of the Sopranos.
Look like he's trying to catch a bunch of Dalmatians with that hairstyle.
Yeah.
He was wearing green St. Patrick's Day parade. St. Patrick's Day. I don't know. Sheesh.
Yeah, you just never know with Vinnie Mac, man.
Ladies don't pinch him though. He'll take it too personal. Don't pinch him.
You just got to take it there, don't you? But, you just gotta be that guy, don't you?
I don't get that many pipe bombs in every so often. So when the opportunity presents itself, I got it straight.
I see.
The floor is yours, Tim.
All right, y'all,
back to Jameis Winston. People call him the Black Brett Favre. I will go back a couple of steps. I remember to forget that the Oakland Raiders had this guy named Daryle Lamonica. They used to call the guy the Mad Bomber. And I never forget what Gene Atkinson used to say. He said, we already knew what Daryle Lamonica was going to do. The first play, a bomb. The second play, the bomb. The third play, a bomb. And that's what, and he was known not only for it was always high risk, high reward with Daryle Lamonica. That's what Jameis Winston reminds me of, a poor man's Daryle Lamonica. Look.
That's interesting for you to say. I thought you were going to say Black Jeff George, but no, I won't go there.
Jameis Winston, look, the difference between, I always say this. The biggest difference between if Jeff George would have had Jameis Winston's demeanor and he was a leader, I think he could done a lot better because he was a damn head case. And you don't want to be that as a quarterback, to be a very, very selfish player and be, a guy who's dysfunctional in the locker room.
Same thing with Jay Cutler.
Because the thing is, look, Jeff George threw the prettiest ball you would ever see. He could throw it. Look, Ken Harrock, who used to be the Atlanta Falcons general manager, he said personally, Jeff George could throw a football through a car wash and not get it wet. He could throw a ball through a car wash and not get it wet. But he was just such a head case at a certain point, and it was just hard for teams to really he just lived his whole career through potential. If he would have had a better attitude, it'd have been a lot better. But with Jameis Winston, he reminds me of a poor man's version of Daryle Lamonica, if you want me to be honest with you. But like I said, it's high risk, high reward with Jameis. I really think they're going to do the same thing with Jameis like they did with Kurt Warner when they was about to bring in Eli. They're going to bring him in because they don't want to thrust whoever they end up drafting into the fire.
Mentor.
He's going to mentor. And the thing is, the perfect person to mentor the quarterback that they have coming in is Jameis. I mean, the thing is, he's made the mistakes. He's done everything. He has made the mistakes. He's been a starting quarterback. And guess what? He has no problem with taking his lumps in the media. He has no problems with it. He admits when he makes mistakes. Not to mention, there's a lot of things that happened earlier in his career that he had to recover from that was a humbling experience. So he had to go through those things, not to mention with the crab legs controversy. So there was a lot of humbling experience. So if anybody can tell you what not to do coming into this league, it could be Jameis Winston. Like, don't do this in front of the media. Don't be, especially in some of the markets that he's been in. Especially with some of the things that he's seen, not only in him being your starting quarterback, but also, sitting behind Deshaun Watson. He knows, hey, man, look, people start telling you and getting in your ear, start telling you to do certain stuff. Don't do it. And I think that's the perfect guy to have, because guess what? Hey, you know what not to do. I can't do certain stuff. So that's the perfect guy. So guess what? They're going to mentor him and use him to bring him up. They might play him his first year, maybe part of his second year, and then, bye-bye Jameis. But I think that's what they're going to do. New York has a lot of holes to fill. I think that Mel Kiper said it best. If you're looking for a guy who can handle adversity to the highest extent, look no further than Shedeur Sanders. Because if it's anybody that can take that heat in the New York media, it has to be Shedeur. Because look at what happened at Colorado his first year. Look at what happened even when he was in Jackson State. And then his second year, people, even though he had a hellified year, people were still criticizing him. If you ask me, he got snubbed for Heisman voting. It should have been him up there, as well as Travis Hunter. You should have had two Heisman candidates up on there. But I understand that they had other players that they preferred. But I really think that Shedeur got snubbed as far as being a Heisman candidate this year. But if there's anybody that can handle that New York media and the scrutiny and the constant, I would say the constant bear down on not only his play, but on the character, it has to be Shedeur. And guess what? I believe that if the New York Giants bring Shedeur in there, somebody who's used to the pressure, who is used to the media saying this and that and the third about him, I think he could thrive in New York. But as far as bringing Jameis in, I think it's a good thing. Hey, play him at the beginning of the year. We all know, even with a great quarterback, if you draft a good quarterback, given the magnitude of this organization, we all know still you're not going anywhere fast. We're not going anywhere fast. Granted, you have some good players. You have Kayvon Thibodeau. You have Brian Burns. You have Dexter Lawrence. You have a lot of good players on this team. But you're not going anywhere fast. So your best shot will be to play Jameis first and then see what your quarterback can do if it gets too bad, if the bleeding doesn't stop. But I think Cam Ward is going to go first because I don't think the mayonnaise man is going to remain in Tennessee. And even if he doesn't go first, Cam Ward, if I'm the Cleveland Browns and you have Cam Ward staring down the barrel of that second overall pick draft gun, you need to pick him.
But wait a minute, champ. You argue for Abdul Carter.
Yeah, because I think that Cam Ward is going to be gone. But if they have him, if Cam is available, Cleveland needs to draft him. I'll say this. If Cam Ward is available, Cleveland draft him. If Cam Ward is not available, then draft Abdul Carter and just make that defense so unbearable that nobody can stand a chance with you. There's been a lot of teams that have won Super Bowls with stifling defenses. There's been a lot. So wouldn't be the first. But I really think that Jameis Winston is a bridge quarterback. They're going to bring him in and kind of mentor and kind of bring a new guy. And plus, I don't know if this coaching staff is going to be there the year after this one as well. So I think that's another reason why he's going to end up starting as well. I don't think that Brian Daboll is going to be there the year after this one. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions with that New York organization. And, there's a lot of questions and a lot of things that need to be answered. And a lot of these answers are just going to lead to more questions. It's not like they're just going to solve it and it's going to solve a little bit of everything. There's a lot of things that need to be solved with this New York organization. The only thing that's stopping them is everything, and they have to get back to it. And it's not like this is a trash organization. This organization has 4 Super Bowl rings. So they just been in a slump. And they haven't been much like a lot of other teams when you're not able to find a quarterback and you get rid of some of your best players. That's what happens. So this team has a lot to address.
Yeah, man, no doubt about it. Let's read the comments in the comment section. Shout out to our guy Harrison. What's good, boys? Just want to say the sky's the limit for Carolina and let Dan Morgan cook. PSP go OS go OU. Vince McMahon looks like my dad whenever he gets mad at me. Winston is just nuts in a good way. And Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdell is going to feed families. Fellas, I got breaking news, unfortunate news. The late George Foreman just passed away.
What?
Yeah, I'm reading it right here. This is a statement. I'm reading it from Vibe magazine. Legendary boxer, author, and entrepreneur George Foreman has sadly passed away at the age of 76. Champ, I sent it in the group chat, and let me read you a statement. Says it right. I'm reading a statement from his Instagram. Our hearts are broken with profound sorrow. We announce the passing of our beloved George Edward Foreman Sr., who peacefully departed on March 21st, 2025, surrounded by loved ones, a devout preacher, a devoted husband, a loving father, and a proud grand and great grandfather. He lived a life marked by unwavering faith, humility, and purpose. A humanitarian, an Olympian, and two-time heavyweight champion of the world. He was deeply respected, a force for good, a man of discipline, conviction, and a protector of his legacy, fighting tirelessly to preserve his good name for his family. We are grateful for the outpouring of love and prayers and kindly ask for privacy as we honor the extraordinary life of a man we were blessed to call our own. So fellas, I mean, tragedy, sad, really unfortunate news, shocking. Whoever wants to go first, your thoughts.
Oh man, damn. I didn't expect that. I didn't even know that Big George was sick. I mean, did it happen suddenly or what?
I just got the report just now.
Damn. I didn't even. Wow. That's a heartbreaker. Look, I understand that people are going to bring up his 70s, you know, him being one of the top heavyweight in the 70s, but I got to see George Foreman in the 90s. I got to see George Foreman in the 90s. You know, when look, I love the Midas commercials. You know, I'm not gonna play a lot for this muffler. I'll never forget that. Look, George Foreman, look, you made a lot of great memories for many generations. You made good memories for my parents' generation who saw you in the 70s when you was Mike Tyson before Mike Tyson. And I mean, George, look, in fact, he was greater because George Foreman, whereas Mike Tyson was a hard hitter and he was only like 5'10", 205 pounds, George Foreman was almost 6'5" in like 250. I'll never forget, Evander Holyfield said, he said, look, now he faced George Foreman when he was in his 40s. He's his late 30s, early 40s. He said, I'll never forget this right here. He said, George Foreman caught me in the mouth. And he said, although he did not knock me out, I just knew when I went back to the corner, all my teeth had fell out. I'll never forget when everybody was sparring with, when they say that everyone was sparring with Rocky in order to audition for the Rocky Balboa part for Apollo Creed. And I never forget what Sylvester Stallone had said. He said, how is this sparring with George Foreman? And I never forget, a lot of guys kept telling him that. He said, imagine getting one of those railroad tires and somebody smashing you in the head with it. I never forget when he hit Chuck Wepner. I mean, the based on, it was because Rocky Balboa was based on Chuck Wepner. Go back and look him up. Not only was he a good boxer, he was also, Chuck Wepner was also a judge in one of the biggest debacles in WWE history. He was a judge at WrestleMania 15 for none other than the Brawl for All. Him and Gorilla Monsoon.
Not the brawl for all.
Yes, Chuck Wepner was a judge along with the late great Gorilla Monsoon for the Brawl for All. And I never forget what Chuck Wepner said. He said, "Look, he said I never forget that George Foreman hit me in the stomach and then hit me in the top of the head. And he said I never forget one of the bones or part of my orbital was sticking out of the top of my head. That's how hard he hit. Hey man, look, before air fryers, it was the George Foreman grill.
Real.
Before air fryers, it was the George Foreman grill. And look, I love to see George Foreman knock out Michael Moore.
Oh, you stole my idea.
Yes. Knocked out old Michael Moore. I stayed up all night to watch that fight, man. Mom had to damn near whoop me to get me to go to bed because I want to see Big George win that fight, man. So one of the greatest of all time, man. Look, had not one, but two Hall of Fame careers. One in the 70s and then one in the 90s where, some of the best heavyweight. And he won in two of the greatest eras. He won in the 70s with Muhammad Ali, Ken Norton, Joe Frazier, Chuck Wepner, a little bit of everyone. I mean, Ken Norton Jr., Ernie Shavers, Larry Holmes. He won during two of the greatest eras in boxing history, George Foreman did. He won in the 70s where Muhammad Ali ruled the roost, and then he won in the 90s where you can argue Lennox Lewis, because everybody's going to say Mike Tyson, but really Lennox Lewis owned the 90s. Let's just keep it all the way 100. Lennox Lewis, the most popular guy and the most exciting guy was Mike Tyson, but the best boxer in the 90s was Lennox Lewis. Let's just keep it a buck. So he won during that era in the 90s when you had Lennox Lewis, you had Oliver McCall, you had Frank Bruno, you had Michael Moore, David Tua, Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, Andrew Galata. And those are just the big names that I named. That's not even including Tommy Morrison and Ray Mercer. So he won in two of the greatest eras in boxing, Big George Foreman did. So look, Mr. Foreman, as you look down upon us, thank you for all the great memories, and thank you for the air fryer before the air fryer, because I love cooking burgers on that damn George Foreman grill. I love cooking the burgers on that George Foreman grill because hey man, look, when that George Foreman grill first came out, my mom bought me one for my birthday. I cooked everything on that damn thing I know at least a month. So, Mom, what you doing? I'm in here cooking my burger on the George Foreman grill. Oh, what you doing? I'm cooking the steak on the George Foreman grill. So, and he made millions off of that George Foreman grill, teaming up with Macy's and Sears, man, made millions. And the thing is, the burgers taste good. They taste just as good without all of the fat and stuff like that. So before the air fryer, it was the George Foreman grill. You gave us the George Foreman grill, Mr. Foreman. You gave us great boxing memories. You are one of the greatest of all time, top 5 heavyweight of all time, if you ask me. And you beat some of the best of your time. I thank you and I salute you, Mr. Foreman. And I thank you for the memories you gave, not only me, but also my father. Because look, I was so young and naive. I didn't realize that, like I said, I was a kid when George Foreman came back. I was a kid when I saw that. I didn't realize how dominant that he was earlier in his career.
He was
more dominant. I mean, and he was all business. Like I said, he was Mike Tyson before Mike Tyson. So
he was more menacing than Mike Tyson. Champ, do you remember? And I think Stephen A. Smith mentioned it before the match against Ali. Wasn't it true that people in Ali's camp, they were crying because they actually thought that Ali was going to die in that match?
Yes, they were. Look, one of the hardest hitting heavyweights of that era was Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier knocked out Muhammad Ali with the left hook. I mean, literally almost like Roman Reigns, came off the floor and hit Muhammad Ali with a right hook that will just flatline any man. And he hit George Foreman with that left hook, and it didn't even phase him. and he knocked them down and spread him across the floor like apple butter. I mean, spread him. And then just kept hitting it. Now, never forget what George Foreman said. He said, "Look, I had to keep hitting Joe Frazier because I was scared he was going to get up and he was going to come get me." So that's how afraid he said. Because look, there was a lot of me being good in that match, and there was a lot of me being afraid in that match. And I admired his honesty, man. So, I mean, he was menacing. He beat some of the greatest heavyweights of all time, including he beat Joe Frazier twice. He beat Ken Norton Sr., who a lot of people don't realize that Ken Norton Sr. is Ken Norton Jr.'s father, although they share the same name. Ain't that something? I mean, beat some of the greatest heavyweights of all time. And that's a legacy. If you ever want a person that can tell you that you could be successful two ways. You could be successful by being the menacing and the bad guy, and you could also win by being the good guy. Is George Foreman. Not to mention he did marry a couple in the Astrodome in the USFL as well. So, man, there's a lot of legacy that George Foreman will never be forgotten, man. He was and let's not forget the video game on Sega, George Foreman Boxing. That was great too, man. And man, a lot of great memories with George Foreman, man. Mr. Foreman, I appreciate you, man. And look, as you, hey man, look, God got a hell of a roster up there, and I salute you, man. Shout out to great George Foreman and all of his family. So I salute you.
BRF.
I definitely think the 1970s was the greatest era of boxing in the history of the sport. When you consider, you can make a case 3 of the top 5 heavyweights of all time are from the 1970s. When you got Ali, you got Frazier, and you got George Foreman. I really don't think it's a question that they're 3 of the top 5 heavyweights in the history of the sport. I don't think it's really that much of a question, if any, a question. Just like the good Lord, his wars he had with Ali and Frazier and all of those, and like Ken Norton, just all those wars he had with those guys back then. And yeah, oh man, I feel like, yeah, I honestly think being a young guy in the early 90s, it was an absolute just, I was skeptical at first of the idea of I didn't really know George Foreman that much, being a young guy then, being a kid. So seeing this older guy, like late 30s, going in his 40s, trying to box and fight some of these younger guys, like trying to fight a Michael Moore, or trying to fight like a Riddick Bowe or somebody like that. Like you were kind of skeptical on that. But this, I mean, dude literally had like hands of freaking like steel. He's arguably the hardest hitting heavyweight ever. And just and like at like his prime, at his peak, are one of the most intimidating boxers you're ever gonna see, because he wasn't one of those guys, like he wasn't one of those like 250-pound dudes, like a little gut here and there, not necessarily in the greatest of shape. George Foreman was a rock. Like George Foreman at his peak was literally like chiseled. At 6'5", 250, like 6'5", 250. He was literally chiseled. Like he was a monster. But to still possess the skill that he had, and not being a lot of these heavyweights that rely on the power and not necessarily being as skilled, like a good example of that is like, Deontay Wilder of the day, could hit with the best of it, but not necessarily the most skill. Like George Foreman was a really good all-around boxer at his peak, and even in the 90s when he came back, being able to win another world heavyweight championship at that age I feel like it's one of the great stories in all the sports. And yeah, his entrepreneurship definitely speaks for itself as well, particularly the George Foreman grill. I mean, I don't think there's a person, man, woman alive during those years when the George Foreman grill was at his peak who didn't own one and didn't use the daylights out of it. So let me tell you, like some of the best burgers and steaks and pork chops and stuff I ever had was on that George Foreman grill. I mean that's one of them things that was just like it was kind of like ahead of his time. It was ahead of his time. It was ahead of his time, and but that's just that's just George Foreman just being the innovator and being the great mind and man that he was, and that's the first I heard of it. Like I haven't really been in look at the news that much. I haven't really seen that much. I know it just came in, but it's shocking because I think he's been doing I think he's been doing interviews and stuff. He's been on TV. He's been kind of out, talking, living life, and just not taking life for granted. He just reminiscing and stories of what his life was at his peak, and just you can almost you can imagine the amount of stories that was filled in George Foreman that he could just roll off and tell with a smile on his face and just really educate you on what he went through growing up and then getting older. Like George Foreman is just one of the great. And George Foreman's an icon. I mean,
Yeah.
just not to mince words. George Foreman is one of the icons in the world. I mean, like it's like to go from sports and to take it into entrepreneurship, to take it into TV, but to really George Foreman understood it. What it, I mean, I don't want to dive deep into it, but I'll just say George Foreman is one of those who understood what it is to be a black man in America, but he made the most of his opportunities. He made the most of what was given to him, and he turned it into an empire. He turned it into something that he could share with his family, that he could share with his kids, with his grandkids, and it's just a legacy that will never be forgotten and will always be discussed years and years to come because, as I said earlier, he is part of the greatest era of heavyweights in the history of the sport with him, Frazier, and Ali. And their fights are just enshrined and they are immortalized, and they are things that I don't think will never not be talked about in the history of man. They are some of the greatest spectacles we've seen in any sport, and prayers and condolences go out to his family and friends. And it is a sad day. 2025 has 2025 has already hit us with some heartbreaking losses, and George Foreman, even though he was 76 and he lived a really good life, it still stings because we know how how much he was out there, like his face was everywhere. So definitely RIP, rest in power to the amazing, the immortal George Foreman. It has been immortal. He's immortalized. His legacy will live on forever. Prayers and condolences to his family. And believe you me when we say his legacy, it'll never go away. He created too many special things, whether it was in sports or entrepreneurship, that will always be remembered. And we definitely salute him. We salute his family and friends. We wish them well. And very very much a tragedy losing him. So rest in power, and definitely prayers and condolences go out to his family.
You got to admire his honesty too, because remember when they asked him about the fight that never happened, right? Between him and
Tyson
Mike in the
Him
90s.
and Tyson.
He said, look, I didn't want no part of Mike Tyson. He said one of us was scared and the other one was glad he was. He said, I didn't want no part of Mike Tyson. And you have to admire a person for being honest like that. I don't care what people say. You got to admire.
Honest. He had integrity.
Yeah.
He had integrity, and people forget how menacing he was back in them days, man. But really a sad day. Lost a boxing great, but also lost a great businessman, entrepreneur. I mean, y'all couldn't have said it any better. I mean, just what he went through at the times. I mean, Champ, you said it. I mean, he had another great Hall of Fame career, second time around. And to beat Michael Moore, especially at his age, considering what he went through after losing of the fight against Ali. I mean, man, George Foreman, remarkable. And hearts and prayers go to his friends and family. Gone, but never forgotten. Never forgotten. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Before we start off the show, let's have a quick moment of silence. Thank you. Like I said, George Foreman passed away at the age of 76. Gone, but once again, never forgotten. Your legacy carries on. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. All right, fellas, let's start off for the next topic for the show. May finish the show a little early because I know y'all got some plans for Saturday. But BRF, I gotta ask you because I already asked Champ.
Okay.
Cena turning heel, and did you see the promo Cena cut the other night on Monday Night Raw? If you saw that promo he did, and I know you consider John Cena the GOAT, BRF, but boy, he went after that promo, especially the one in which he talked about that little kid, Champ. Am I exaggerated?
No, you're not exaggerating. Like I said, he kind of reminds me of Crybaby Brett doing, the heels of the new generation there and then the early things of the attitude in the early days of the attitude there. It kind of reminds me of Crybaby Brett. But at the same time, I saw this clip from like 2013. Remember when he had that tricep injury and his damn arm was like the size of a grapefruit, And it seems like the minute that he announced that he had to leave for a second, everybody's hollering, yes, yes, yes. And he was smiling inside. He was smiling, but he was just like, but that was when the time where, the fans and really the fans was kind of booing him because, people was kind of missing the attitude era during the strict PG era. But yeah, man, when you look back on that, is it safe to say reasonable crash out? I don't know.
I mean, this I feel like nowadays with how they treat wrestling and particularly how they treat the heel turns, I feel like it's all in the justification. And with Cena, there is justification behind the heel turn. I mean, he said it. I was in a toxic, abusive relationship for 25 years. And I feel like that's the line of the entire promo. As good as the promo was to me, that's the line that stands out because he's not wrong in that. Like when he came up in the Ruthless Aggression era, where he had the memorable debut against Kurt Angle, and he had a little success for a while, but the fans, they were like, no, they weren't ready for him. They started booing him. And then he went into the rapping and then turned into the Thugonomics, and they caught fire and fans got behind him. It got him all the way to the WWE Championship. It got him from being on a taped every week SmackDown to being on a live Monday Night Raw in one of the greatest WWE draft moments in the history of them doing the WWE draft, with John Cena being the because it used to be in the WWE draft when it first started, the champions were locked. Like the champions didn't go anywhere. And the 2005 draft was the first draft where everybody, including the world champions, were available to be drafted. So when Raw drafted Cena, it's like one of those moments that just stands out. But then it was just like, he's won and he mentioned like he would win and he would win and he would win. And I remember this time, like he kept winning and winning and winning, and the fans got sick of it because they wanted new guys to win. But John Cena kept winning, so they just started booing. Like you had your "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks." That was almost like the apex of that, and just like I feel like this is already the second greatest heel turn in the history of the business. I still think Hogan. I still think Hogan. I thought about it at first, but then Hogan's is still better because of the impact it had on his career. From the standpoint, Hogan's character got really, 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 really stale. And his character was at a point where you thought retirement was about to come. And that heel turn gave him another 5 or 6 years, even though he was older. It gave him pretty much up until the 02, 03, kind of 04, that WWE run. It gave him a new lease as far as like being at the top of the sport. And it was what it did for him and his career. I still think is why I think the Hogan heel turn is still the greatest of all time. But boy, John, this is close. This is close. Just from the standpoint of everybody was speculating on what he's going to do, like how are they going to book him on this retirement tour, and so many fans was like, okay, you done like these last few years, you hadn't won a one-on-one match in a while. You've been putting people over. Like, okay, we got you put Austin Theory over. You put Solo Sikoa over. Oh no. This year we want you beating everybody. You getting 17. You ain't putting fans are like, you ain't putting nobody over this year. You beating everybody this year. We want you going out on top. You beating everybody. But he might potentially get to do that as a heel. And it's just as we were kind of thinking about it, like, would they really do it? And they did it from the standpoint of like, we couldn't do this with you 10 years. We couldn't do this with you 10, 15 years ago because the kids were like the peak as far as like the demographic they were targeting. And you would have hurt too many feelings if you did it then. 2025, you're about to retire. This was probably the only time they could have done it. He's not hurting nowhere. This is the perfect time they could have done it. He's not hurting nowhere near as many feelings with this heel turn as he would have if he done it like the embrace the hate, all like with Kane when he had came back with the mask. Like if you turn heel then, he would have hurt a lot more feelings as opposed to now. You can do it now because it's like, you're not hurting feelings with this. Like we got Cody. We got Cody. We got our guy. So we gonna pull this trigger and we're gonna see what you can do with it. And that first promo, it was a hell of a start. It was a hell of a start. It was a hell of a start. Like I said, the toxic abusive relationship line, him pointing out the kid, and it was crazy because they zoomed in on that kid. Like he had said, Cena, I love you. And then Cena basically put him on blast, like not even 20 seconds later, and you just see his facial expression just change, and it's just John Cena just being the performer at work that he is. This is probably the most excited I've been as a wrestling fan in a long, long time, and honestly, these last year or two, whatever, it's already felt like the next boom period of wrestling. And now you have a heel John Cena joining forces with a heel Rock, two of the biggest baby faces in the history of the sport, arguably now probably your two biggest heels in the sport. Who'd have thought we would have lived to see the day John Cena and Rock, arguably the biggest heels in WWE. Who'd have thought we'd see it? Who'd have thought we'd seen it?
See them collaborating like this, and especially with that kid.
I'm like, yes, like exactly. You just see it like that. That is like the perfect portrait right there. Like the facial expression changed after Cena pointed him out and was just basically giving it to the fans. It's like, and I see people talking about, oh, they're protecting Cody. They didn't want Cody to get cooked. I'm like, chill out. We done told y'all time and time again with angles like this, you got to let Triple H cook on some of this. You got to let him cook. I promise you, John Cena is going to get that one promo in. It's coming. Because you know what we say. It's going to be that time. It's gonna be that time. Cody's talking to him. But here's the thing, though. People need to stop acting like Cody can't go bar for bar with a lot of these people on the mic. We got to stop this. We got to stop acting like Cody can't go bar for bar. But I'm waiting for that one Raw or that one SmackDown. I'm waiting. Cody's gonna get his stuff in. John Cena gonna take that hat off, and he gonna hit him with that fine speech. And then we all just gonna get out of the way, and we gonna let the master cook. Cause people got to understand when John Cena hits, I mean, it's the same motion. He kind of take his hat off, kind of rub his head a little bit. He look at you and he hit you with that fine speech. Boy, I'm telling you, some of the greatest promos that John Cena has ever cut, where he basically destroyed whoever it was he was talking to, it always started with fine speech. So when he hits that on Cody, we all just gonna duck. We gonna duck. We gonna get out the way, and we gonna let that man cook. Cause I promise you, John Cena got one good promo in the clip where he's going to rip Cody Rhodes from ear to ear. He's got one. I'm just waiting for when they finally let him loose, because he's gonna let it loose. And when he lets that promo loose, we are going to be glued from one side of the world to the other side of the world for WrestleMania 41 when they finally wrestle. I'm telling you, people just need to wait. They need to wait. We got like about 4 or 5 weeks. John Cena gonna get that promo in. He gonna get it in. Boy, I'm telling you that. And when he gets it in, I'm telling you, they think the heel turn was the most watched segment in the history of the WWE. Wait for John Cena to finally get that promo in on Cody. He hits that fine speech. We just gonna duck and get out the way. I'm excited. I am excited. And I felt another thing that really stands out before we move on. Everybody was like, "Is he gonna he's getting new? He gonna change it?" Because they did an interview he did with Chris Van Vliet, and he talked about what they were gonna turn him against The Rock, and they started talking about it. He got his theme song done. He got a final mix of his theme song. He already had new gear. He was gonna start wearing singlets as opposed to the jorts. His song was called "Fear My Name." Had the whole shtick ready to go, and fans were speculating what they're gonna do. John Cena, being the genius that he is, he doesn't change the gear. He doesn't change the music. He said after 25 years, and y'all were talking about you get no new gear, you get no new music, you get nothing. So this man is literally going to be a heel, rocking the jorts, the colorful gear, and using that theme song probably the entirety. John Cena. People don't. He's a master at this. It's a genius play by him. It's a genius play by him. He's not going to change anything. It was the whole segment was well done, and it cooked. And then don't get me wrong, Cody. I feel like the work that Cody has put in, he earned the right to cook John Cena the way he did in that promo. He earned the right. But John Cena gonna get him back. And I'm gonna be glued to the TV when he finally gets that promo where he gets to cook him. This could be about 4 or 5 weeks of just absolute mastery on the microphone between both of these guys, and I'm excited.
Anything you want to add, Undisputed World Champ?
Look, BRF, look, man, as far as wrestling genius, you and BRF got me on this one because, look, I watch wrestling. You guys digest it. I'm just being real. So I got to agree with everything BRF said. Like I said, he does remind me of Crybaby Brett, as evidence for what Cody had told him. So it kind of does put you in a mind frame of crybaby. So you see it. But some of the biggest stars, it seems like when the torch finally gets passed, it seems like the biggest stars have to face each other. You saw that Andre, in order for the torch to be passed from the territory days to the golden age of wrestling on television, Andre had to pass it to the immortal Hulk Hogan. In order for the new generation, in order for the golden era to pass it on to the new generation, Hulk Hogan had to pass the torch to Yokozuna. Now, many will argue it was supposed to be Bret Hart, but the torch got passed to Yokozuna. For the new generation era to be passed from the new generation to, the Attitude Era, guess what? Although no title was involved, it was passed from Bret Hart to Stone Cold Steve Austin during that epic match they had at WrestleMania 13. When you saw the Attitude Era finally pass the torch to the Ruthless Aggression Era, you saw that The Rock had to pass it to Brock Lesnar in order to end the Attitude Era for good and to really and truly bring the new aggression era, the Ruthless Aggression Era in. Now, John Cena did put Roman Reigns over. Let's not forget that. But when you think about the magnitude that this is going to affect on so many levels, the Ruthless Aggression TV PG era against the new superstar that is carrying this torch for the entire industry, not as a heel like Roman Reigns did, but as a babyface, making all of the appearances, taking on all comers, having a knockdown, drag out match with Kevin Owens at the Royal Rumble. I mean, just reminiscent of the match that his father had with the late great Terry Funk. If you look at that match, it looks just like it if you put it side by side. So for them to pass the PG and Ruthless Aggression era and pass that torch over to him and turn Cena heel, that is something of genius. And look, for them to have the Crybaby Bret type character with John Cena, they're not through developing that character as of yet, but that's going to be very, very interesting to see. But I like it. Everybody was expecting, oh yeah, I can't wait to see it, because he had me for a minute. Oh man, I can't wait to see this new gear. I can't wait to hear this new music. How's it going to come out? Is the lights going to dim or what's going to happen? And he was like, hey, change your expectations to nothing because you ain't getting nothing. You got to love it. You got to love it. So
I love it. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be exciting for WrestleMania. Because like I said, man, and Champ, shout out to you. You did a video on this on TikTok because Stone Cold Steve Austin, my GOAT, he's going to make some appearances around Vegas around the time of WrestleMania. You never know, because with Cena, Rock, and then Austin with that glass break, oh my God. But the promo that Cena cut, you kind of had a feeling that Cena was eventually going to turn heel. This is his last year. This is his retirement year. You might as well try to let John Cena be something that we never thought he would end up being, which is a heel. And I got to be honest with y'all, it's exciting. I mean, to see John Cena act like this and to come up with that promo, and when he torched that kid, I mean, oh my, that was diabolical, Champ. That was diabolical. And I love it. And also give shout out to Triple H, man. Especially with how the way with the creativity. And with Rock. Whoever thought Cena and Rock joined together as heels and to collaborate? I mean, this is beautiful, man. I mean, this is what's getting us excited. But I can't wait for Mania, man. I just can't wait.
Yeah, because that Mania 41 card, like my gosh, you got Cody versus Cena, you got Jay versus Gunther, Randy Orton and Kevin Owens was made official on SmackDown. Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Seth Rollins was made official on this SmackDown. More than likely, you're going to get Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, and Bianca Belair. Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair's official. This card has the makings of just we kind of get on WrestleMania because night one has usually been better than night two or vice versa. This could be the first 2-night WrestleMania where both nights cook.
This could. Do you think it has the potential of being better than last year's?
Yes. This could be this could be the first 2-night WrestleMania where both nights could wire to wire cook. If they do this right, both nights could cook from beginning match to main event. We might finally get that 2-night WrestleMania where there's not a bad match either night. Like I'm waiting to see what they do, but this has been honestly, I was hyped for last year's WrestleMania. I think right now I'm more hyped for this year. This could be the first 2-night WrestleMania where both nights cook. It's that serious.
And BRF, you brought it up. Either you or Champ with Austin with that glass break in Vegas. If they hear that, my God. And again, the reason why I still have Austin as my GOAT is because even though he's been away from wrestling for a while, I guarantee you, Stone Cold on crutches, when they hear that glass break, the fans are going to be ecstatic. They're going to be screaming.
They thought that Undertaker pop was loud last year. Let Stone Cold show up at WrestleMania 41.
Hey, he already gonna be a fan fest. And look, speaking of Stone Cold, man, look, isn't it safe to say that The Rock is the new Vince McMahon?
Yes. At this point, considering the fact that he's now the biggest heel.
I like it. I love The Rock's character art because me, Champ, and Flash. I think we had talked about it on one of the episodes of our podcast because it was the Netflix premiere, and Flash wasn't really feeling the whole. The Rock was doing such a killer job as the final boss in his heel character. And for the Netflix premiere, he went back into this whole ambassador babyface kind of like, chopping it up, shaking Cody's hand, drinking Terramana with him, hugging him and all that stuff. And I kind of said, and Champ could quote me on this. I said, you know what? It wouldn't shock me at all if all this is a ploy. And at some point, we get evil, psychotic final boss Rock back, and he brings it back in the most subtle way possible. And that promo on that SmackDown where he was like, Cody thought he wanted the WWE Championship. He's like, nah, I don't want your championship. I want your soul. That was the most subtle way to say, yep, he's back. Psychotic final boss is back. I'm sorry. You don't say, I want your soul in as calm a tone as he said it. And it not just be the most psychotic thing you've ever seen. I was like, yep, Psychotic Rock's back. Psychotic Rock's back. Something's gonna happen at Elimination Chamber, and I just felt something coming, and sure enough, within like 2 weeks, he brings Psychotic heel final boss Rock back just like that. I mean, man, I got to give it to Rock. This is like easy. I feel like this is the best character work he's done of his entire career. This final boss character. It's just he's adding layers you never thought he would add, and he's just doing such a really good job of it. Like, shout out to The Rock. Shout out to The Rock. I didn't think he had this kind of side in him as a heel, but it's cinema. That's just flat
great about being a heel, man. That's what's so great about being a heel, because you don't give a damn of what the audience or anyone has to say. You have the creative liberty to be exactly how you want to be portrayed. And The Rock, man,
facts.
He's taking it as far as with the heel. I love it. I love it. And Triple H, like you said, BRF, this is why he should get his own wing with the Hall of Fame. Thank God he's not
scared of a heel. He is He is not scared of a heel turn. He has shown he is not scared of a heel turn. That's why he's so good.
Why would he? He's one of the best heels. If anyone knows how to play a heel, there you go.
Exactly.
But man, I can't wait for Mania. But let's continue on with wrestling, man. We got baby face or heel. Now, for those who may not know what baby face heel means in wrestling language, baby face means good guy hero. Heel means bad guy villain. And tweener in between baby face or heel. So I came up with at least 3 athletes or celebrities, and myself, Champ, and BRF are going to determine which one is a babyface, heel, or a tweener. So the first one, Kyrie Irving. I'm going to go first. He's a tweener. Some people will say he's a heel because of Stephen A. Smith. And look, Kyrie has had some controversial past. I mean, the first one I will bring up. I don't really think it was that big of a deal. I thought he was being silly. The Earth was flat, but then he got a lot of blowback for last year for the suspension. What led to his suspension during his time with the Brooklyn Nets before he was traded to Dallas, and of course, which ultimately led to his departure from Nike, and of course. I'm sorry, but the IG story of Alex Jones. So, but he's a baby face as well because Kyrie's philanthropy, a lot of young guys, a lot of kids, before he departed from Nike, them shoes, those were big, man. Them Kyries, those were nice. And when you look at his game, Kyrie is fun to watch. Say whatever you want. He is fun to watch. He's exciting. Arguably the best handles I've ever seen. He can create his own shot. He can shoot the 3. He can shoot the mid-range game. He's capable of giving you a 40 or a 50. He could score. He can also score inside the bucket. And Kyrie does a lot of good for his community. Very philanthropic. Does a lot of good things for his community. Definitely a role model for people like us. I would say he's a tweener. He's a baby face, but at the same time, he can be a heel because he's known for controversial stuff in the past. So I would say a tweener. Whoever wants to go.
All right. I'll set the tone after that magnificent soliloquy you just did. I will set the
Thank
tone.
you.
That was magnificent. Hell, I mean, wow. Damn. I need
That's
to start.
why he called me the New Jersey Genius.
I'm gonna start learning words in dictionary. I'm gonna start learning words out of dictionary every day now that I ain't in school no more, so I can kind of match what you be doing because what you just did was magnificent, bro. Because
Talk to Mama PSP.
Yeah, I need to start learning some words, look at the course or something, because that was great. I will say, look, for me, I have to say a baby face. Because if you really, really look at it, of course, when you have problems with a big time teammate like a LeBron James, you know, there's a lot of controversy that comes your way. Hell, Shaq had issues with Kobe, but it never affected any of their legacy. I think a lot of things that Kyrie did, with the exception of maybe one, I will say, the Twitter post, was kind of blown out of proportion. Because when you think about certain things that he did, outside of that, I will say, was he right about it? They made a big deal about him not, wanting to get certain medications. Now, a lot of people who objected to getting them, now they're getting back paid in the state of New York by the thousands. So was he right?
Not to mention, Champ, and I'm glad you mentioned about to validate Kyrie, the vaccine.
Yeah,
because
that's what I was talking about.
But here's the thing. Even though I disagreed with him not getting the vaccine, Unlike Aaron Rodgers, he didn't lie.
Yeah, he didn't lie. And people can get onto whoever about that. But the thing is, that's why I was kind of trying to avoid the vaccine talk because people might say it's political. So that's why I just said medication.
No. I mean, we keep it real. Listen, we keep it real.
You know me, I'm politically correct, but a little bit too much at times. But yeah, he didn't lie about that. And like I said, was he right? Because now people on every job around the nation are getting back paid because of that. And now you're seeing famous speakers coming out saying, calling people who didn't get the vaccine, they're calling them purebloods. You know, you guys were right and we were wrong. So, you know, people can say what they want to about that. What I admire about Kyrie, he's not afraid to speak his mind. Like I said, the only thing I had against Kyrie was when he posted that video from there. But to one person's point, and I never say this guy's name ever in my life, he did make a legitimate point when he said Kyrie didn't make the video that he posted. Why is it still on Amazon? Why was it even still on Amazon? And if it had not been present, he wouldn't even have an opportunity to post it. And granted, he did go on an apology tour. He did meet with certain leaders in order to atone for it and things like that. He did meet up with a lot of great leaders in order to atone for that. That's the only really thing I could really say that Kyrie did, that it was just like, okay, it rubbed you the wrong way, but he atoned for it. And the thing is this, he does a lot of philanthropy work, like you said. He has done, like I said, a lot of stuff in the media got blown out of proportion. And like I said, from the COVID vaccines, and come to find out he was right about his assessment of it, because people are coming out and apologized about it. People in the state of New York are getting back paid because of it and things of that nature. He was right about the vaccines. And like I said, just because I disagree doesn't mean he wasn't right about it. You can, when you look at let me put it this way. When you stand upside down, when I'm standing across from you, PSP or UBRL, and I'm standing in front of a number, let's say the number 6. From my end, it may be a 9. From your end, it may be a 6. Doesn't mean that both of us are doesn't mean that any of us are wrong. Like I said, standing in front of a 9 while it's on the ground may look like a 9 to me. From where you're standing, it may look like a 6 to you. We can disagree and still be on the same accord. With Kyrie, I think a lot of times that we miss that. But like I said, the only thing that I really think that Kyrie did was just egregious was the fact that, you know, the video post online. Other than that, people say, well, you know, he didn't stay in Boston like he said. A hell of a lot of other players didn't stay in Boston like they said they was going to stay. You know, he wanted to join his friend Kevin Durant and go to another one. And like I said, hey, I don't want to hear nothing else about loyalty to teams after what y'all did to Luka. Granted, you traded him to my Los Angeles Lakers, but guess what? He never asked to be traded or anything of that nature. And you traded him without warning, without shopping him around or anything. So I don't ever want to hear NBA fans or NBA front offices talk about loyalty because of what they did to Luka. So him asking to be traded, I don't blame him. Him not taking the COVID vaccines, although I disagreed, come to find out he was right, I don't blame him. Him having problems with LeBron, everybody has problems with teammates. Hell, if you really look at it, a lot of the teammates are coming out about Michael Jordan. They didn't really like Michael Jordan. Look at the No Bull tour with Horace Grant, with Luke Longley. Yeah. So you, just because you have problems with teammates and you disagree with the masses, doesn't make you this mythical bad guy figure. I disagree with you. So what? Just because my opinion does not agree with the masses does not make me wrong. And that's the thing about Kyrie. A lot of it in the media, with the exception, like I said, of that one thing about the video post. I did not agree with that at all. But a lot of the other stuff really blown out of proportion. From them saying, well, he needs to retire and stuff like that. Then look what happened. He took Luka and he helped Luka and the Dallas Mavericks go to the NBA Finals last year. So the guy is a great basketball player. He's religious. He does. The last time you see him get in trouble off the court?
None. Say what you want about Kyrie Irving as far as with his beliefs or politics, but last time I checked, Kyrie Irving, no legal issues, no domestic violence, none of that stuff. And Champ, you also brought up Boston. Was he wrong for saying that Boston is known for racism? I'm sorry, but it's the truth.
I mean, look, if you want to look, I don't like to bring this up, but I'm gonna just we gonna bring it up. We gonna roll with it. Look, the greatest
even Bill Russell told you.
Yeah, the greatest crime in Boston history is when somebody broke into Bill Russell's house and took a poop on his bed while he was winning championships with one of the greatest dynasties, if not the greatest dynasties in NBA history. So if they treat one of their all-time greatest players like that, I mean, hey, that just goes to show you how it was. And guess what? A lot of other players have come out and said the same thing about Boston. And it's of no secret how, certain dynamics in Boston, it just like, hey, and people can call Kyrie woke or whatever. I believe that phrase is pretty much overused at a certain point because it seems like the minute where the masses are, this makes me uncomfortable, they want to holler woke, but I digress. You can say woke, you can say whatever you would like. But when somebody's doing all the right things on the court, with the exception of that video that he posted on Twitter, guess what? Just because I don't agree with you does not make you wrong. Like I said, The Undertaker is one of my favorite wrestlers. Do I agree with The Undertaker for voting for who he voted for? Hell no. But is he still one of my favorite wrestlers of all time? If I met him, would I have a conversation with him? Yes, him and Kane. Just because we don't agree does not mean we have to be enemies. Just because I will say that again for the audience out there. Just because we don't agree does not mean we have to be enemies.
Agree to disagree.
Every person who you fight is not your enemy, and every person who gives some to you is not, and every person who agrees with you is not your friend. If anything, look out for the damn yes man who always, yeah. That's some blank you got to worry about stab you in the stomach later on. Just being real. So we can disagree. You can disagree and still be friends. And let that be a lesson to everybody. But for Kyrie, I got to put him as a baby face. Like I said, a lot of stuff that he did, well, like I said, with the exception of that one thing with the little Twitter post, with the video from Amazon, I strongly disagree with that. A lot of the stuff with Kyrie got blown out of proportion by the media, especially with Stephen A. Smith. So guess what? I cannot put him in a heel category because one picklehead want to sit around here and blow something out of proportion. I can't put him as a heel because guess what? Everybody has disagreements with their teammates. Everybody's going to have different political opinions, and everybody's going to have different ways of looking at things. And just because my opinion differs from the masses does not mean that I should be held up as a darn villain. I'm not a villain just because I disagree with you. It seems like when I'm on the side of the masses, then all of a sudden I'm the hero. But when I don't agree with the masses, then all of a sudden I'm this woke, overpaid basketball player. So I'll let you do with that what you will. That's just food for thought. I'll let you do the dishes and put it in the dishwasher for the night.
Well said, Undisputed World Champ, BRF.
Champ makes really great points as far as why he felt like he's a babyface. I am, for this, going to agree with PSP on this. I do think it's a tweener because it's not just over his career, it's not necessarily just like it's not just the Alex Jones video. It's not just that. Like some of the things he's done professionally, like him, like I understand why he wanted to leave Cleveland to get out from Braun Shadow. I get that, and going to Boston, but then it's like you know what I'm saying. You get hurt your first year at Boston. They go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then you come back. You're healthy, and then Milwaukee lays you down. And that's probably something professionally that I wasn't really feeling at the time. But then, like I said, he's a tweener for me because he kind of later on in his career, he's shown atonement for some of the things he's done, and that's one of them because he's made up with Braun. I mean, he said flat out if he could go back and do it over again, he wouldn't have left. And I mean, he's come out and he has stated that if he could do it again, he wouldn't have left because it was a good thing he had with Braun. But but at the same time, I don't blame the man for wanting to be the guy because regardless of how good Kyrie Irving would have gotten to in Cleveland, Cleveland is LeBron James's town. Always has been, always will be. It's gonna be. And no matter how good Kyrie Irving would have done, he would have never overtaken LeBron. Especially after Cleveland won that championship. Even though he made the game winning shot to clinch it, Braun was the head of that. He was the horns, he was the head of that. So I get, you know what I'm saying? I get where he's coming from. But yeah, like a lot of people would look at him as a heel from the standpoint of if you have like some of it, the dude doesn't hold back. He says what's on his mind. And a lot of people don't like that about him. The IG video definitely is something that I did not like either, but like I said, I'll say he's a tweener because of the atonement that he has shown that he's wanting to receive from some of the things he's done, like talking to those religious leaders, talking to them and getting educated and understanding things that maybe he did not at first get, but getting a newer understanding of certain perspectives and growing and getting older and getting wiser to what basketball is and becoming more of a leader. Like particularly, it's really been his time being with the Dallas Mavericks, where you're seeing this new leader evolve and emerge in Kyrie Irving. Like you were really starting to see that with Dallas before he tore his ACL. And the PJ Washingtons, the Derek Lively's of the world, even with Luka, like he's even said it. Like I wanted to guard him because this country can be evil. This world can be evil. Like they can love you one minute and hate you the next. And he wanted to guard Luka from that. Luka still being a young cat in the game, and he wanted to guard him from that. And I know it hurt him, and I know it had to hurt him when Luka got traded because I mean they were the dynamic duo. Like they got to the NBA Finals and ran through stiff competition to get there. Like they like last year they took out the Denver Nuggets. They took out the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean they put the work in to get to the NBA Finals to get there and you just you see him growing and you see him evolving and you see him taking on this leadership role and doing it with a smile on his face and doing it with pride, yet at the same time having to remind yourself that he might have the greatest, if you want to say quote unquote, bag as far as his handles or whatnot. Kyrie Irving to me has the greatest bag in the history of the NBA in terms of his handles, his ability to create shots, his ability to play off ball, one of the greatest attackers the game has ever seen. Just he does everything. Even being in the league as long as he's been, he still does everything at an elite level, still being as good as he is. Like that's the part of him. That's the babyface part of him, really, that you're seeing, like his game on the court and how he's a beautiful player to watch on the basketball court in terms of his style of play. Kyrie Irving is art to watch on the basketball court, especially in isolation where you get to see him use those handles, the greatest handles in the history of the NBA. When you see him put those handles on display, I'm telling you, it's literally watching the dramatization of how the game is basketball is played from an isolation standpoint and a one-on-one perspective, because I feel like no one has ever been able to do that like Kyrie Irving. So for me, it's definitely tweener. Just like some of the decisions he's made, how people can look at him as a heel, but yet the atonement and the beauty of watching him play basketball, and just there's things about him that you don't like, but then there's part of him that you like and appreciate. So yeah, for me, it's a tweener. He's a tweener for me too, because I mean there's on both sides of the fence. There's things you're not gonna like about him, and there's things that you are gonna like about him. So for me, he's a tweener too.
All right, next one, Patrick Mahomes. I'm gonna go say babyface, because I understand people may think he's a heel or tweener, but really, has Patrick Mahomes really done anything bad? He doesn't get into any off the field issues, as far as we know. The only negative things people have to say about Patrick Mahomes, him particularly, is his Kermit the Frog voice. That's about it. But all the other stuff you hear is from his wife, his mom, his brother with the TikTok dances, his father with the legal issues. But as it pertains to Patrick Mahomes, no. I mean, the only thing you get tired of with the Kansas City Chiefs, particularly Patrick Mahomes, is the attention. Yes, it does help when your teammate Travis Kelce is dating a billionaire girlfriend in Taylor Swift. But Patrick Mahomes, I say babyface, because great role model. A lot of kids idolize and look up to his game, his play. I mean, his style. I mean, the haircuts. When I look at Patrick Mahomes, he's still the best quarterback in football, in my opinion. Still arguably the best player in football. Still has a chance to make a case for GOAT. He's only 29 years old. I just think people would say either a heel or a tweener because of his family. Because Brittany Mahomes, a lot of times people have called her out, particularly how the way she has responded during games. One in particularly, the AFC divisional round, and when the Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills, and she pouring champagne all over the fans. His brother Jackson Mahomes for the TikTok dances. One in particularly, the football game against Washington at Washington, in which before the game, Washington commemorated the late great Sean Taylor, and then Jackson Mahomes was doing the TikTok dance with DJ Drama's song "Ain't No Way Around It" with Future singing the hook. Now, ultimately, Jackson Mahomes did apologize and took down the video. They look at Patrick Mahomes Sr. with all the legal issues that he's had. They look at Randy Mahomes, who is a Trump supporter. But at the same time, I don't look at that and say that's on Patrick Mahomes. He can't be responsible for what the family does. In the end, he's responsible for what he does. And when I look at him, doesn't get into any off the field issues, despite all the things that they may say about his family. I kind of look at it the same way he's handling it with Steph Curry. Because let's not forget, BRF champ. Remember, Ayesha Curry was on the Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like it. I did not like it because, first of all, I've told you before, I'm tired of Jada Pinkett Smith. I ain't got to say any further. And why would you waste your time going on that Red Table Talk? And if you're Steph Curry, it does feel kind of bad that your wife has to go out there and reveal stuff in front of the public that we really don't need to hear. So when I look at Patrick Mahomes, you feel sorry. You feel sorry for him because honestly, he's a really good guy. Even Broad, who is an Eagles fan, who is happy that his Eagles beat the Chiefs, he hasn't really said anything bad about Patrick Mahomes. I mean, and that's a lot for Broad to say that, though. So, is there really any hate with Patrick Mahomes? I mean, like I said, He gets made fun of for having the Kermit the Frog voice, the Chiefs with the refs, the preferential treatment. But at the same time, is it really because of him, or is it really because of the circumstances or the people around him? So in a way, I kind of look at it and I say babyface. And when you look at and the example I brought up, look at Steph Curry. Look at his family. I mean, with his parents, they had some issues at one point, which led to a divorce. And Lord, Aisha Curry being on that Red Table talk about drama and toxic. I mean, what better way than to go on the Red Table talk if you're anybody? But I say babyface. Whoever wants to go.
Oh,
I'll run it this time. I will probably I see Patrick Mahomes for me is kind of like Tom Brady, like early in his career, kind of. He was a tweener by association. And I say tweener by association because even though you may like him and he hasn't done anything wrong, you can't stand him because he keep damn winning. you can't stand him because that's the only reason why you really don't like him is because he
Jealousy.
wins. It's jealousy. Like it's jealousy. Like it's the fact that like the NFL top 100 list, players didn't put him as the number one player in the league just out of sheer jealousy. Like, I mean, come on. When everybody knows Patrick Mahomes should have been the number one player on the NFL top 100 list of 2024, but they didn't do it just out of sheer jealousy. And I think that's one of the most lame, petty things I've ever heard. For me, Patrick Mahomes is a babyface. Because it's really there's nothing about him personally as a man, as a player that you hate. There's really nothing about him. I mean, yeah, of course, there's stuff you can make fun of. Of course, like we always bring up his voice. Like, yeah, we can make fun of his voice, but at the same time, it's like look at his style of play and you look how he plays on the field. I feel like if Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback to ever grace a football field, Patrick Mahomes is probably about to overtake him and become earn that title of the greatest talent to ever grace us at the quarterback position. If he already hasn't, now he's close. He's getting there. If he's not already there, I mean, he just strikes me as a good person at heart. You know what I'm saying? He's out in the community. He's out doing things. He's out, doing charitable things and stuff like that. And you see it out on the field, like his energy, his drive, and his passion. What he brings to the Kansas City Chiefs as a leader, as the face of the franchise. As you see it on a week to week basis when he's playing, and just like he doesn't get into trouble. He's not in news for the wrong reasons. He's not getting in trouble, no legal things and stuff like that. So I mean, it's just I feel like Patrick Mahomes, if anything, he's a tweener by association because he is the quarterback head of the dynasty, as you will, the Kansas City Chiefs. He's the head of the dynasty. So he's a tweener by association. But I mean, if you just analyzing the man, he's a baby face because there's really nothing about him personally that you don't like. I mean, yeah, Brittany Mahomes is Brittany Mahomes. That's a conversation neither here nor there. Same thing with his brother. I mean, hey, they are their own people, and I'm not going to get on here and insult them or talk about them in any other way. I'm just going to say they are unique. Unique is probably the most politically correct way to describe Brittany Mahomes and Jackson Mahomes. They are unique individuals.
Or entitled.
Most definitely that. So we're not gonna get on here. We're not gonna get on here doing any insulting or anything like that. We ain't gonna do that.
For those who may think I'm exaggerating, I didn't lie. I did not lie.
At all. Nope. Not when I
You laughing about lying? You got to fight John Rocker. Shit.
I hope. Let me tell you something. I ain't gonna lie. I hope he knock a couple of teeth out of John Rocker mouth. I ain't even gonna lie because I lost all respect for John Rocker the 99 World Series when he said what he said about the city of New York and the people that live in New York. I lost all respect for that man because I knew what type of person he was after that stuff came out of his mouth. I'm like, yep, I know who you are. Yep, you are the closer of my team. I want you to help my team win the championship, but the first chance they get, I want them to put you the hell out. I don't you need to go. you need to go. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes, like, there's nothing about Patrick Mahomes that really you can dislike about him personally. So yeah, he's a tweener by association, family, and team. But the man personally, he's a babyface.
Champ.
Heel. He's a heel. And we just gonna put it basically in sports context. We're gonna keep it basically in sports. I think that for this conversation, I need to go into the wrestling lane in order to preface what I'm about to say. You remember when CM Punk, John Cena, ironically, and the Pro Bowl went a little something like this. There was a point where you was an underdog and everybody cheered you. Now you have become the very thing that you despise. You have gone from being the Boston Red Sox to being the New York Yankees. And that pretty much sums it up why I say he's a heel. You hate him because he wins. You can't it's kind of like the great Bill Goldberg said when he was in WCW. Everybody who's been put in front of me, I've destroyed. So with him winning like that, you can't help but to hate him. He gets all the superstar calls. His team is high on the echelon and has brought casual fans in. You can't help but to hate the fact that we cannot beat this dude. We can't beat him. When he first got into the league and when he first won his first Super Bowl, it was a lovable story. Lovable story. Oh, man, the Kansas City Chiefs hasn't won in over 40 years. They won the last Super Bowl that was between the AFL and the NFL because they beat the high-powered Minnesota Vikings. They went through so many years of misery. Now they finally won one. Then he got two. Then he got three. Then you start hearing them GOAT talks. And when you know, look, and let me break something down to you. When you start hearing them GOAT talks, it started getting a hell of a lot more controversial because it starts messing with people's nostalgia. Because, you know, when you start messing with people's nostalgia, you automatically become a villain. Let's just keep it real. When people start saying Call of Duty is better than Mario, you start messing with people's nostalgia. And that's when everything just gets very, very interesting at a certain point. But the thing is, we hate Patrick Mahomes because he wins. Everybody loves a winner until they win more than we do. I'm going to say that again. The general public, everybody loves a winner until they win more than we do. Not to mention the glamour part of the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, you're this Hollywood team. You're not just, you know, Kansas City loyalist anymore. You're a Hollywood team now. Ice Spice is at your games. Taylor Swift is at your games. A little bit of everybody's at your games.
Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark is at your games. So now you got that Hollywood element in there. People are saying now that you are a flopper because you tried to draw a foul in one of the playoff games that you had. So, yeah, you are a heel based upon football and football alone. We hate to see you win. You are in a more kinder, gentler era when it comes to football than a lot of other quarterbacks who had dynasties. When you think about the Troy Aikman, Mr. Tom Brady's, the Joe Montanas, even the Otto Grahams, they were in the hard-nosed eras. And when they think about this era, they think about a more kinder, gentler, and I quote, football, mode of football at this point. So people are going to have their reservations about that, sort of like NBA savants have that love-hate relationship with LeBron. So when you factor all of the sports thing and just the sports alone, he has to be a heel. He wins. He's on a superstar team. He gets all the superstar calls. Some of the rule changes that are going along are because, him and his team. And like I said, everybody loves the underdog story. Everybody loves the underdog until you're the big dog. Everybody loves the underdog. They don't expect nothing from y'all. Man, you won. Clap for them. Then you start winning a little bit too much for folks' comfort. Hell, we see that in our neighborhoods every damn day. Somebody get a new car. Oh, man, good job. Yeah, everybody say that at first. But let that same dude or same woman come back with a Porsche. And you don't see them again for a while. You think you too good now that you got your Porsche. Yeah. Sports mimic real life. When people win too much for somebody's comfort, then we try to find stuff that's wrong with them. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship, and it's kind of like when you're in a relationship, and it's that girl who always trying to find something to argue about. You know what I'm saying? Relationship going too good. Then one day she just come in the house. Every time I come in here, you got the microwave on high. And then she walk out the room like, what the hell? Like, really? So, yeah, based on sports, he is a heel. He wins. There's a little bit of LeBron James-esque in his game where, he's going to try to draw the foul. He's in a more kinder, gentler football league than his predecessors as far as being a part of a dynasty. You have the celebrity factor. And, like it or not, you're guilty by association. Like it or not, you're guilty by association. You can never do one thing wrong. You can never do one thing wrong, but because of everybody around you then did something that the public doesn't necessarily agree with, you're guilty by association, especially when they're your family. It's kind of like hypothetically speaking, if one of us had a family full of thieves, we could be a lawyer. But because they're around us a little bit all the time, they'll say, I bet that lawyer's a thief. So that's how it goes. You're guilty by association at a certain point. Yeah. And like I said, you are a reflection of the people who you are around. If a whole bunch of people around you are annoying and, very, very childish and very, very, rubs people the wrong way, eventually they point those fingers back at you. And reflections about the people around you are reflected in the public, and they face those feelings towards you. Like I said, you can never have done a thing in your life wrong, but because the people around you who just so happen to be your family, especially your brother, your wife, your mother-in-law, and your dad, if we have people like that around, everybody has those people around them that are not necessarily media friendly. But because you're around them all the time, it's just like, okay, there's a little bit of the hatred that I have for them is not directed towards you, because you can't necessarily disassociate yourself with them. These are my family members. I can't. So I have
plus, champ. Not only that, though, if it's coming from the family, people are gonna assume it's coming from you.
Exactly. And that hatred that people have is gonna eventually feed into you. It's kind of like, let's just hypothetically speaking, after the show blows up, all of us on TV, and let's say one of my cousins say something about whoever in the media who competes with the show. People are going to automatically think, oh, yeah, Stefan's family said that. He must have said it. Stefan's my real name, by the way. I'm just saying. I had to use that as an example. But people are going to say Stefan's cousin said that. That's how he must feel, especially if you don't come out and refute it. So, yeah, there's a lot of family hate, and a lot of that family hate is reflected, and put on him. Fair or unfair, it's going to be out there. It's kind of like I said, it's kind of like when Ayesha Curry said the NBA was rigged. He was already on a hated team as it is because Kevin Durant joined the team. Remember, Steph Curry didn't do anything but what he was supposed to. Go out, win MVPs, win championships, go to the final. He did everything he was supposed to. But because he was on a very controversial team, they labeled him as a heel. That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what Patrick Mahomes is going through now.
All right. Last one, fellas. Antonio Brown.
That man ain't that boy.
You know what?
Board better be unanimous.
You know
Listen,
what,
that man ain't nothing but a heel. Board better be unanimous.
Why did you make this that easy for us? I mean, you made this just real easy because that dude right there, something is seriously wrong with that dude. He need to go to church, to the Pope. He need to go somewhere and sit his behind down.
Some people, even though you can say heel and rightfully so, some people don't be surprised if people say he a tweener because people do kind of like AB for his antics. They love how he was as a football player at the prime of his career. He was, I mean, there was him and there was Julio Jones, and then there was Megatron. There was Odell Beckham Jr. AB was putting up numbers. AB, had it not been for all those antics, he would have been in the Hall of Fame. But because of that, I mean, champ, I say he's a heel because again, AB, it seems it's like the movie Life. Can't get right. You know, the dude who always puts himself in every predicament. He can't get right. That's AB. And when and look, champ, do you know how he has made Ben Roethlisberger look good? And we know Ben and his off the field problems. So
right in Georgia, right in my home state, so I understand that.
Happened 40. I live in Madison. Milledgeville is like 45 minutes away.
Yeah, that's this look, Antonio Brown, he's going to go down in history as the Mark Gastineau of this generation. A guy who had all of the talent, a guy who had all of the credentials, could have won multiple Super Bowls, was on pace to pass the great Jerry Rice. He was on that type of pace. And if you really want me to be honest, look, Julio was that guy. And I'm always going to be a homer in saying that, hey, Julio was that guy. But when you really look at them touchdowns, AB was a surefire touchdown guy. But he's going to go down as the Mark Gastineau of this generation because of his attitude, because of all of the bull stuff that he did when he was not only, in the league, but also off the field, not to mention what he did to Tom.
He invited Tom Brady, even invited him to live with him.
Even got the great Tony Robbins to even help him out. Yes. Brought you in, gave you a place to stay, say, hey man, you can stay with me for a while or what have you, brought you to a team when really nobody was really messing with you at that point because you had already crossed two of the flagship franchises in the league. You was in Pittsburgh acting a darn fool. Then you went to Oakland acting a darn fool, calling folks names that we won't even mention on this show because it's so derogatory, and they got you up out of there. The only thing you had to do to get $31 million to stay on that roster for 2 weeks, and you still couldn't stay on there. You would have stayed on that roster for 2 weeks, you would have had $31 million. It wouldn't have mattered.
Then you leave the video. I'm sorry, Chip. Did you see the video when he got cut by Oakland?
Yeah.
I'm free. Yeah.
And then Tom Brady give you a chance not once, but twice. Him and Bill Belichick brought you to New England. That didn't work because you was out You was off the field acting a darn fool. Then, okay, I'm not with Bill Belichick no more. We bring you to Tampa Bay. Get you a Super Bowl. Not only that, Tom Brady cared about the guy so much that he made sure not only his guy Gronk was force-fed in order to get his bonus, and he force-fed Antonio Brown so he could get his bonus. Man, and he asked him on the sideline, hey, man, hey, what you need for that bonus? I need about 2 more catches. All right, let me get them to you. So, and not to mention, look, you cross great people, and now you may have very well cost yourself the Hall of Fame. And I don't ever want to hear anybody compare Antonio Brown to T.O. T.O. was about winning. He wanted to win. He had an attitude because he wanted to win. Antonio Brown had an attitude for attention and pulling bull jive antics. And what's so funny about that, whenever somebody would call him out, whether that be Shannon Sharp, whether that be Stephen A., which I don't agree with Stephen A. all the time, whether it be Ryan Clark, who was teammates with the guy, y'all always want to say, in the great words of Shannon Sharp, man, let that man live. He playing chess and not checkers. It looks like the board kind of clear right about now, if you ask me. Because the king didn't fail, and every piece around them went with it. I would say he has to wholeheartedly be a heel. And like I said, he's the Mark Gastineau of this generation because he's cost himself the Hall of Fame. Because, guys, these writers are never going to forget how he acted and the fact that he quit on his team, all the antics that he's doing off the team, using all kind of stupid little slurs on his little podcast he has. Having, some of the stuff he said about Caitlin Clark and, like, really?
We have actually, Champ, there's a lot more.
Yeah.
Not to mention the video of him in Dubai with the woman, which we won't even go any further.
Yes.
I think we know.
Yes. So
and then the rumor of all rumors, which you should know what I'm talking about when I say the rumor of all rumors when it comes to a particular woman.
So you're undisputedly a heel. You cost yourself the Hall of Fame. You're the Mark Gastineau of this generation because guess what? You had a chance to be one of the all-time great, but because you ran your mouth and because you are just a POS and you are around here doing dumb things, you cost yourself the ability to be immortalized forever. You were arguably the best receiver in Pittsburgh Steelers history. And considering the receivers that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had, that is saying something. You were better than Mike Wallace. You were better than Hines Ward. You were better than Plexico. You were better than 2 receivers that are in the Hall of Fame. You were better than Lynn Swann and John Stallworth. You were better than any receiver that the Steelers ever put in a Steeler uniform. But because you were childish, because you were dumb, because you did all of these dumb little things, and you burned bridges every single which way but left that you went, you cost yourself the Hall of Fame and cost yourself the ability to be immortalized. To the point that even the great Julio Jones, when they asked, did you want to bring you to the Atlanta Falcons, which would have been deadly, by the way, he even said, no, we good. So, yes, you're a heel because you are a very, very self-destructive person. You're self-destructive. And you tried to take everybody with you. And you tried to play it cool when in reality you played yourself. And I don't ever want to hear anybody talk about how Antonio Brown, he was blackballed from the league. No, you played yourself out of the league. I don't want to hear him in Hall, and although he deserves it from a statistical standpoint, and there's been a lot of guys who's in the Hall of Fame that have did a lot of questionable things, including Bullet Bob Hayes, Bobby Lane, a lot of big personalities. Guess what? You quit on your team. That could have been another opportunity for y'all to get to another Super Bowl. but instead you quit. Then started all types of trouble everywhere. And the thing is, look, not only do I have a problem with that, I have a problem with people enabling that behavior.
Yeah.
And calling it the R word whenever it's not condoned. It's not racist when you're acting a damn fool and people don't want to tolerate it. So stop calling it that. When you're out here in the streets acting a darn fool, not doing what you're supposed to, doing dumb things, causing yourself opportunities, burning bridges everywhere you go, it's not racism. In the great words of Ice-T, nobody put anything in your food and told you to eat it. You chose that path. So don't blame society for the stupid things that you've done. And if there's one thing that you could take away from this situation, is this. Stop trying to blame society for the stupid decisions that you make. Because when you make those decisions, you got to eat it. Guess what? When you put slop on your plate at the buffet, you got to eat it. No matter which way you put it on there. When you make a hard bed, you better be ready to lay in it. So I don't want to hear anything about Antonio Brown got blackballed. He got blackballed. No, he didn't. He was acting a fool, and he's right where he belongs, on the sideline, making a spectacle out of himself. Every which way but left, looking for attention. He's essentially a football player turned IG model. Because guess what? All he does is look for attention in all the wrong places, and he ends up looking even more foolish. And there's nothing intelligent about what he's doing.
Before I let BRF go, I can't say any more than Champ stole my thunder. That's why great minds think alike. And the other thing, Champ, I do think you also left out one word regarding racism. That's the S word, sellout. Because anytime whenever a black person holds another black person accountable, they're going to be a segment of black people. They're going to say, why are you calling him out? Why are you being a sellout? No, we're not selling out. At the same time, if you see somebody acting like a jackass, you have to hold them accountable. And we all know, we as black people, we can't do what white people do and expect to have the same opportunities as them. And when I look at AB, he did that to himself. He went to Oakland, to your point, Champ. He had $30 million. $30 million guaranteed. He had an opportunity to make enough money, and he blew it. Plus, he remembered, we cannot use the terms in which he called Mike Mayock, and we know. I mean, go look it up. He recorded the conversation with John Gruden, which, by the way, at that time, I don't know if it's still illegal now. It was illegal in the state of California to record a conversation without a person's knowledge. Then you go to New England, accusations of sexual harassment, sexual assault by the former trainer, Brittany Taylor, and then the artist. Then the IG, I mean, you yelling and cursing at the mother of your kids, even when the police is there. Then at Tampa, Bruce Arians told you, and he would know a thing or two, Champ, because he was there in Pittsburgh when Antonio Brown was there. He didn't want to touch him. But the only reason why he was overlooked is because, of course, Tom Brady. Tom Brady wanted him. Had it not been for Tom Brady, Antonio Brown would not have been on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster. Even allowed AB to come live with him, with his wife, with his kids. Given everything that AB has been through, let me ask y'all this. If you had someone living in your house, considering AB's track record, would y'all want him to come live in your house? Nah. Hell no.
Hell, you can't. Hey, look here. Not only can you not stay in my house, you can't even pitch a tent outside of my backyard, partner.
You better get a hotel or something. You better live somebody else's place.
I could care less if you're in a Kenmore box or whatever kind of box you in. Like I said, you better stay off my property. So, hey, we teammates, but anybody that can that is a whole nother level of trust when somebody invites you to their home. I don't think people understand that. When you know when somebody rests their head, that's another level of trust. Hell, when you know the same city as somebody live in, that's a different type of trust that you have with your friends and your relatives and your associates. So for you to rest your head in the same place that I rest my head in, and this is a place where I have under control and I have to provide and protect and do everything like that, and I have my manly duties to not only to my wife, but to my children, and I let you around them, and you betray me like that. Look, Brady, you handled that perfectly. Because if had that been the right person, they'd have had to. Man, please, they'd have probably. Hey, hey, you get. Hey, I'm gonna just be real, just to put it nicely. You do things like that, you're liable to get put in the morgue where I come from.
Then to add on, during Tampa, the fake vaccination card. And the only reason why is because he was supposed to owe Champ a chef, the former chef, a certain amount of money. And for whatever reason, AB did not fulfill his commitment by paying the chef. So the chef decided to retaliate. And as a result, he was suspended. And of course, he left the game unceremoniously at MetLife Stadium by removing his helmet and his shoulder pads. Now, AB and his representation, they did claim AB did have a legitimate injury. Here's the only problem with AB in that situation. Justify the exit. Justify you removing your helmet and shoulder pads and giving the fans the deuces. You can't. There's no justification for that. If AB wanted to make a case that he was legitimately hurt, he could have excused himself from the game, gone to the team doctor. The team doctor would have evaluated AB's injury. And if the injury was confirmed or legitimate, then the doctor would have informed Bruce Arians, and Bruce Arians would have no other choice but to take the doctor at his word. AB could have thought of that, but he acted like a jackass. He pulled down his pants and he acted like a jackass that day. Plus, he even said, in order to be back on an NFL team, I would not get ankle surgery until an NFL team signs me. Really? You really think some NFL team, anybody's gonna actually sign you? I mean, you're gonna not have ankle surgery? You said to yourself, I won't get ankle surgery unless an NFL team signs me. You're supposed to have the surgery to improve your life. At the end of the day, AB. And then to make matters worse, that photo he posted with him and Giselle after what Tom did for him. If that's not the lowest of the low, I don't know what is. There's a lot of lows, but after what Tom did for him and how you betrayed him and how you treated him, if that is not the ultimate sign of betrayal, I don't know what is. Tom handled it as well as he possibly could, but it's just another lesson. When you know someone who's got a trouble with risk, in the words of Stone Cold Steve Austin, DTA, don't trust anybody. Don't take that risk. Don't take that chance. So I agree with you, champ. He's a heel. BRF.
Yeah, I don't think there's really no more I need to add to that. I mean, really, I think the man just never been the same since Vontaze Burfict hit him in that playoff game. Like, just keep it all the way 100. He ain't been the same. He ain't been the same since that hit, and it's unfortunate. But I mean, at some point, you have to look at them and see how they're acting, and you can't always hold. If something's wrong with you, you can't hold that accountable because at the end of the day, you're still thinking about doing this stuff. So we got to hold you accountable, and that's why Antonio Brown for me is a heel. Just from the standpoint, there's nothing about him that screams oh, I want to meet him and talk to him one day. It's just not. It's just not. It's just not. There's nothing to really like this. I mean, let's keep it away all the way 100. I mean, as few as short seasons as he played with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the fact that he already established himself as the greatest, like what Champ said, greatest wide receiver in the history of that franchise. When you'd only been there a handful of years, but yet you're putting up these insane stat lines. Like at one point, 100 catches, 1,400 yards, and double-digit touchdowns was like the norm for you, bro. Like the top, like if you're looking at the top receiver of the decade of the 2010s, it's Antonio Brown or Julio Jones, and whoever your pick is, you just swap them up. If you think because me personally, I think Julio Jones is the best receiver of the 2010s. AB second, but I'm not going to argue with you if you had AB first because AB peaked higher than Julio Jones. Let's just keep it a buck. He peaked higher than Julio Jones. Where I give it to Julio Jones is some of the really big games he's had and a lot of the consistency, but also being a receiver and stepping up in the playoffs the way Julio Jones has. He's the only wide receiver with 2 conference championship games of at least 180 yards and multiple touchdowns. He's the only wide receiver to ever do that in NFC conference championship play. But Antonio Brown, when you look at the statistics, he peaked higher than Julio Jones. I mean, Julio Jones' best year, don't get me wrong, is crazy. But when you look at Antonio Brown and the years he was putting up in Pittsburgh, back to back to back to back, and especially with the touchdowns, it's like if you think he's the best receiver of the 2010s, I'm not going to argue with you because the proof is in the pudding. The stat lines would validate you feeling that way about him. But just everything that he's done, PSP brought up the video in Oakland where he ran out the house screaming, "I'm free," after he found out that the Oakland Raiders had traded him. When you look at a lot of the things he's doing now, the particular award show that he hosts on X, which we not gonna say the name of on this show because of just how suggestive that show is, and he just he just presents himself in such a light that's just negative and just soul sucking and there's so many things about this man that you just look at him and be like, dude, go hide somewhere. I don't want to hear your voice. I don't want to see your face. Just go somewhere. Just do something with your life because it's like you rather someone not know you're stupid than open your mouth and prove them right. And he does that more and more and more and more with his tweets, stuff he says. Just he is like the good Lord. How could I compare him in terms of a heel? I feel like at his peak, he's like an Edge kind of heel because it's just there's just nothing around the fact that you just can't stand him. Like it's like stuff he says, you look at him like, I can't believe you said that. And then some of the actions, he's like the Edge heel. Like ultimate opportunist, master manipulator. Like I said, the ultimate opportunist. You might as well call him the rated R superstar. Some of the stuff that he done put up there, and he done said you might as well call him the rated R superstar. I mean, I'm just saying. So I mean, like, it's just
it's safer to compare him to the Warrior. God rest his soul. It's safer to compare him to the Warrior because
Ultimate Warrior wasn't well liked around his contemporaries. They said he was problematic to deal with. Even Jim Ross said on Dark Side of the Ring he was narcissistic.
Yes, you see a guy that could have been an all-time great. You see a guy that could have been bigger than, let's say, Hogan, who could have been bigger than Stone Cold, who could have been bigger than a lot of the other guys in the locker room.
At least in their tier, on their level, at least.
Yes, and you see and if you look at the Warriors, path and Antonio Brown's path is kind of like the same trajectory. They got
I
a big
like that.
push. They got a big push. They ruined it. And remember, Vince brought him back at WrestleMania. Not only did he bring him back at WrestleMania 8,
WrestleMania 12.
brought him back at WrestleMania 12. He was darn near part of the Attitude Era but he failed to make appearances there and ruined it there. Not to mention, he went to WCW, overstayed his welcome there. So if you really look at Antonio Brown as a heel, he's kind of like the Ultimate Warrior was. Hellified in the ring, hellified on the field as far as Antonio Brown is concerned. But when it comes to having those values, when it comes to having that being likable, when it comes to being one of those guys that was respected and loved, and what could have been had you applied yourself and had not been out here alienating the hell out of people, then you would have been considered one of the all-time greats. Now, in the same breath, savants, much like wrestling savants, much like football savants, we will never forget the Antonio Brown on the field, much like I will never forget the Ultimate Warrior. But when you think about the things that they did off of the field, when you think about things they did outside of their profession, the Ultimate Warrior yelling at the kid, the Ultimate Warrior out there not making dates, the Ultimate Warrior saying some of the little hateful speeches that he said that he was when he was in colleges. If you look at the trajectory that they are on in their field,
it's very equal.
Yeah. If you look at their field, if you look at their on the field, as far as in the wrestling ring, as far as popularity, the pop that they had, the good feelings that they created on the field. If you look at the good feelings that both of them created in their field, then guess what? You have greatness, lightning in a bottle, somebody who you love to be around. But when you think about how they were as people at a certain point, it's just like you look at them like, hi, Lee, good God, I'm glad I didn't know you. And so, yeah, that's what I compare it to. Yes, as a superstar on the field, you're great, much like the Ultimate Warrior. But off the field is where you pretty much get lost. The only thing that we can hope for is for that reconcilable moment, much like the Warrior had with Vince McMahon in the WWE and the WWE Universe before he passed. We can only hope for that. But when you compare their careers and their trajectory and the things they went through throughout their career, if you look at the Ultimate Warrior's career and Antonio Brown's career, it's pretty much on the same trajectory at a certain point. Hot as ever at one point, but because of some of the things that happened outside of the ring, they pretty much played themselves out of being, considered the greatest of all time.
I would say only difference on the field, champ, as far as Antonio Brown was far more talented and skilled at his profession than Ultimate Warrior was.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but Ultimate Warrior as a wrestler,
lackluster, say the least.
Yeah, I mean, even Jim Ross said it himself. I've never met or seen a wrestler with less ability in the ring than the Ultimate Warrior. But when you look at it, personality-wise, they're the same. They're somewhat the same, champ, because some of the things that they said were incoherent, nonsensical, and delusional. I mean, when Vince and the WWF tried to bring Ultimate Warrior back in 1996, do you remember the term that Ultimate Warrior used, champ? Destrucity? Which means you can be true to who you are, but at the same time, you can still accomplish your goals. And even JR himself thought this was time in my life I can never get back. It was a total waste of a trip. I actually love the Ultimate Warrior analogy, champ, because when you look at some the behavior between Warrior and AB and some of the things that they said, it's pretty up there. They come across as nonsensical and delusional. But also, champ, to your another point that you brought up, I do not want to hear any comparisons with Terrell Owens and Antonio Brown. Not just as far as football, but off the field. You could say T.O. at the time, he was temperamental, but last time I checked, T.O. had no domestic violence issues. T.O. hasn't been accused of any of that type of stuff. Off the field, he was a model citizen. On the field, look, T.O. at times, he was... look, I didn't agree with some of the things that T.O. did. I didn't like what he said about Jeff Garcia. I'm referring to that Playboy interview that he did, champ. Yeah. But other than that, there's one thing I can accuse Antonio Brown of doing that I can never accuse T.O. of doing. You know what's that? Quitting. AB quit. T.O. say whatever you want. He did not quit. He gave effort. He gave his effort. And as far as personality, human being is concerned, there is no comparison between Terrell Owens and Antonio Brown. If you actually make that argument, you're falling on deaf ears. But fellas, man, great topic, man. I know we still got a little bit of time. Let's just wrap up these last two topics. Let's try to keep it short and simple. Favorite Seth Rollins moment?
The betrayal.
I'll say SummerSlam. When he beat Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam in 2014. That was a really good match.
Yeah.
I like that match compared to the WrestleMania one because I wanted to see Seth Rollins have more offense. And in that match, he had to deal with an injury, champ, with the ribs.
Yeah.
And for him to go on in that match and win, that actually said something. Seth Rollins, though, I mean, Triple H, he really pissed off Triple H at one point in time because Triple H was about done with him. He was almost done with Seth Rollins at one point. And Seth Rollins to have this type of career, I mean, when he joined the Authority, I mean, I kind of liked it. So those were my kind of favorite moments from Seth Rollins.
Oh, man. Every time Seth Rollins come out, man, that's my favorite moment, man. Because you just cannot deny when they start saying, oh, when they come on, that just make you just want to join in on the fun. So every time that music hits on Seth Rollins, it's got to be that's a great moment. One of the greatest moments is the betraying of the Shield and joining the Authority. Because it's just like your friends. It's just like everybody can relate to that one little snake, that unsanitary snake in the grass type friend that all of us had at one point in our life. Like we literally fought against one of the greatest groups of all time and beat them. We fought against Evolution with three of the biggest heels of all time, and then you betrayed us. And to this day, that bothers Roman Reigns. It bothered Roman Reigns so much that he literally cost himself the title match last year against Cody Rhodes. And it still bothers him to this day. So that's got to be the landmark moment. And like I said, Seth Rollins is a babyface now. But it's kind of like that whole Shawn Michaels Triple H beef. It's just like, you did something to me, and it just bothers me so much to this day that every time I get a chance to stick it to you, I'm going to do it. Even at my expense. I'm going to jump off this cliff, and I'm going to take you down here with me. It's a chance that I might not live through this, but I'm going to guarantee you ain't. So I got to say the betrayal of the Shield and joining the Authority. Simply because Roman Reigns ain't forgot it to this day. And hey, that betrayal is equivalent. It wasn't as violent, but it was equivalent to the window break when Triple H put Shawn Michaels through that window, because it was just like for 3 straight years they just did not forgive each other for that. and every time they can stick it to each other, they tried to. And that betrayal is equivalent to that. Two good friends that just, you got me that one time. We was on a roll. We fought wars together, but you do this to me. All right, I got something for you. And when we say we got a trick for you, we ain't talk about magic. So I guess just what Roman Reigns said, I got a trick for your behind. So yeah, the betrayal of the Shield. That was magical, and it still resonates to this day. Man, you can relate to that. Everybody can.
BRF.
Man. Seth Rollins. He's arguably the best wrestler of this generation. Definitely. I feel like he's the workhorse of the generation. So many moments. I definitely agree. The SummerSlam match with Brock Lesnar was definitely miles better than the WrestleMania 35 match. I 1,000% agree there. His World Heavyweight Championship run deserves a lot of flowers. Like this one definitely the recent one. Bringing the World Heavyweight Championship back, but definitely his run in 2014, 2015 after he became heel and turned on the Shield. He said in one of his promos coming back, I literally, my knee buckled under the pressure of carrying this company on my back for the last year and a half. So if I have to single out one though, one Seth Rollins moment, if I have to single one out, this one might shock you. Honestly, all of WrestleMania 39, the entrance, WrestleMania 39 for me, the entrance, the wardrobe, which shout out for him to having the guts to even pull them colors off. If you don't remember the WrestleMania 39, it was him and Logan Paul, and that match cooked as well, by the way. But the entrance, the WrestleMania 39 entrance, just you pretty much know, when at a WrestleMania with this new entrance song, when Seth Rollins is getting ready to make that entrance for WrestleMania with that entrance song, it's gonna be one of the livest things ever. And just the size of the freaking robe he was wearing, and then just Seth Rollins has just become like a spectacle of just it's about to go down when you hear those guitar riffs at the beginning, and it's about to break down, what's about to happen, and it's just, he has one of the best entrances in all of WWE, if arguably not one of the best ever, just with that song. Like Champ talking about, when the crowd starts singing with him, it gets you hyped. It brings you in, and you're just ready to see that man do what he do and perform at the highest level. But for me, it's WrestleMania 39, because I think that was he had just recently, not long ago, just turned back being a babyface after that really good heel run, where it was he was the Messiah during the COVID era, and then it morphed into him being the visionary and changing the entrance music. And this was the peak of the initial part of him going back babyface. The fans were just they couldn't get enough of him. And then the match itself with Logan Paul exceeded my expectation. And for as big of a troll as I think Logan Paul is, one thing I'll give him, he has become an excellent in-ring worker. And him and Seth Rollins they tore WrestleMania 39 down. For me, it's the reason why I just picked that is because that was the apex of just Seth Rollins going back to being a babyface, and the crowd just being behind him, and that entrance just really stealing the show. So for me, it's the moment of WrestleMania 39, and just Seth Rollins, basically for all intents and purposes, for that moment in time, he stole the show. So, and he's done that plenty of times. So shout out to Seth Rollins, and he's still kicking. Like he said in a recent interview, maybe 5-6 more years. So we gotta appreciate Seth Rollins while we still got him, because he's not gonna be one of those one that wrestle up there in age and completely just destroys his body and rips his body apart. He's got a, he's married to Becky Lynch. They have Lil Rue. They have a daughter together. He wants to be able to enjoy that after wrestling, and I don't blame him. Shout out to him. So we better continue to give Seth Rollins his flowers and appreciate him while we have him, because he's come out and said we ain't gonna have him for much longer. So we need to appreciate that man while he's still wrestling and doing his thing.
Absolutely. And last but not least, fellas, favorite Keith Sweat track. Some people may say Twisted because that's the most popular. I like Get Up On It.
Yes.
Nobody. And even though it's a collaborative song, My Body with God rest his soul, Gerald Levert and Johnny Gill. That beat and Johnny Gill, man, when he sings that track with them two, those are my favorite tracks. Those are my favorite tracks from Keith Sweat. I mean, Keith Sweat, man, was smooth. He was smooth. Ladies loved them back in the 90s, man. And although, even though I don't know if he collaborated, the mixture with him and Megan Thee Stallion on one of them tracks. I mean, Keith Sweat, man, put it down. But My Body with the group LSG, that's for me.
Man. Well,
yeah.
For My Body, just well done, sir. Well done, sir. Well done. Because that is definitely up there with my favorite Keith Sweat tracks. Well done. That's like top 5 Keith Sweat tracks for me.
I got the song from American Dad.
when Lil Steve sung it, yes.
Yeah.
My God.
When Lil Steve sung it. Oh, that's awesome.
And
that's
the lady
so
screaming.
Awesome. That's so awesome, bro. The fact that you salute. That is one of my favorite American Dad moments of all time. Salute to you, sir. Salute. Definitely for me, definitely up there. Yeah, Get Up On It. Like, yeah, that kind of late 90s run of like kind of getting back in the spotlight. Twisted, Nobody, Get Up On It. They are all definitely up there. I wanna. You remember that one back in the 80s, like when he first came out. I wanna. That's a good one. I like that. More upbeat, but still hitting. Yeah, I like that one. But honestly though, my all-time favorite, and I'm sorry, it trended for a while, about like a year or so ago. You can never go long. You can never go wrong with Make It Last Forever. You can never go wrong with Make It Last Forever. You can't. The beat, and then with him and the girl that was singing on the track with him, they just meshed so perfectly on that track. Make it last forever is like one of the best R&B beats I have ever heard in a song, and it still rides to this day. And salute that they were able to make that song trend about a year or two ago with all the memes and all of that. And he had the he had the other song that trended, and I even used the meme for a video with the little Pennywise clown dancing to the Keith Sweat track. That I can't remember the name of the song. I can't remember the name of that song. But that's another one. But yeah, Make It Last Forever is my all-time favorite. I'm telling you, to all the fellas out there, if you with your lady and you need you a good song to kind of set the tone and set the mood for having a good night, you can never go wrong with Make It Last Forever. I'm just telling you, I promise you. You never go wrong with it. Never go wrong with it.
Champ may probably be thinking for my body later. That's probably what he think about Joy Taylor later on with that peanut butter skin.
No.
You know what? He actually beat me to saying that, so I applaud you. Oh man. Or better yet, either her or Nia Jax. So I mean, but
well, there's Jada Parker.
Yeah, you know, never mind. We'll say that off the air. We'll say that off the air, but I ain't trying to get in trouble on screen. You know,
Miss Parker.
I don't want to make nobody mad. So, man, I will have one of the most underrated Chocolate Girl. Yeah, Chocolate Girl. So shout out to my chocolate girls out there. So y'all know, I stay in the chocolate factory all the time. So hey, y'all know what it is. So I gotta say, Nobody. Hey man, look. If you want the sweetness, you gotta come to the chocolate factory, baby. I'm just saying.
Chocolate City.
I mean, yeah, you got to come to the chocolate factory if you want the sweetness, man. You got to go to the chocolate factory. So I'm just being real. So no pun intended. And so Chocolate Girl will forever be one of my favorite tracks by Keith Sweat. So hey man. Like I said, shout out to the chocolate girls out there, man. Undisputed got you. I will say, oh man, look, I'll never forget my body because of the number they said at the beginning. Everybody remember the number. 911-0024.
911-0024.
Yeah, everybody remember that number. That was the Mike Jones number before Mike Jones came out. Everybody remember 911-0024, man. That was a good one. Oh, man. Keith Sweat, man. I wanna make it last forever. I remember that video that you did when they was talking about the Falcons BRL, because I literally threw my phone down and started laughing. I thought I broke my screen because I was literally laughing and crying while I was at the same time because I was trying my best to hold out the phone.
No, because it was right after the Kirk Cousins signing. And all the moves they were making, it made sense, and it was like, and I'm thinking to myself, yes, and I'm thinking to myself like, this team might actually do something. So that just came to my mind. You a clown if you think the Atlanta Falcons can make the NFC Championship game this year, and it was it. It just went, it went with it.
But yeah, man, Chocolate Girls. My body. Hey, nobody. Hey, look, BRF. Look, man, you from down south. You remember what we used to tell them dudes that we do didn't get no girls back in the day. You know who like you, don't you? Nobody. You know we used to do that. We used to do that all the time. We used to do that to the dudes who didn't get no girls. Pass out in the cafeteria because you knew they didn't get no Valentine's on Valentine's Day. So we used to always say, "Guess who got your Valentine? Nobody." Yes. Hey man, it was an adventure growing up down south because you would go get roasted. So yeah, man, singing that song "Nobody" because it was a good song, and at the same time, it became a running joke for a lot of things. So it's just like, hey man, who you taking to the dance? Nobody. And so it became that's a cult classic within itself. Like I said, it was a great song, but it was also a revolution for roasting somebody, man, because you just couldn't wait to get to school to rank on somebody because you knew they had did something stupid, or you knew they didn't have no date to the dance or something like that. So that song is a cult classic. Nobody is, man. So shout out to Keith Sweat for that song. But yeah, my favorite song by Keith Sweat got to be Chocolate Girls. Like I said, man, the Chocolate Factory. You want the sweetness, come to the Chocolate Factory, man.
Absolutely. Well, fellas, that concludes the rest of the Sports PSP pod. Any final comments before we wrap up the show?
Man, it's been a good week. it's been a great week. And thanks for the shout out earlier, PSP. I definitely did not expect that. I kind of hide stuff. I keep it in the circle, but I appreciate you making that announcement. Yeah, and not one, not two, not three, but four. Number four, and great things are about to open up. I'm just it's kind of weird because I came home like, what the hell am I going to do now? Because there's no more homework you got to do. There's no more projects, so you're just like, okay. Because first thing I'm thinking, I'm like, let me get home so I can do my homework. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have any. Finals is over.
Hey,
So
listen, man, you might as well take some time to yourself. Try to have a little vacation or something.
yeah, I'm heading to Atlanta. The champ is coming tomorrow, and I might have to make me a visit somewhere. I just might have to make that visit. So
Magic City, you may have to see him there.
Man, y'all might have to see me in Magic City tomorrow. It's my graduation. In the great words of Jay-Z, it's a celebration. So, you getting a 4th degree, and that's a feat like no other. I'm just happy, man. Like I said, I did not expect you to do that, man, but it's always good to see that you have people clapping for you in your corner. And you two gentlemen have definitely been that. And, whereas I try to hide great things, y'all put them on blast, and I can't thank y'all enough. And I appreciate that, man. But on another note, hey, man, look, enough about me. You almost at 95,000. You almost at 95,000. Hey, don't you get that little plaque when you get to 100,000?
I think that's if you get like 1 million, I think.
And look, YouTube, send PSP a plaque, man. Send that plaque to him when he get to 100,000. He at 95,000 right now. He the best sports content creator on YouTube and on TikTok. He better than a lot of these other guys. Send him that plaque and start give this man his own show. Go ahead and do that, because guess what? You're doing yourself injustice. Over 95,000 in less than 2 years. That is a feat within itself. Doing the damn thing, as we would say down south, man. Hey, PSP, you already at GOAT status, man. So, hey, man, keep going. You 95K. People spend a lifetime trying to do that and don't do it. So for you to do that, man, I'm damn proud of you myself. And look, man, hey, YouTube, ESPN, give PSP his own show, man. So
I appreciate that, Undisputed World Champ. Thank you, man. Thank you for always everything, man. And also, please stay tuned for Champ's podcast for NFL, NBA, WWE. Look no further than the Undisputed World Champ podcast, not just only with Champ, but also with BRF and Flash. So stay tuned for that podcast, man. BRF.
Hey, I mean, Champ, man, I got to tell you, man, anytime someone is actually doing their due diligence to make themselves not only better professionally, but better personally, as far as like, your accolades, as far as getting the degrees or whatnot, that should always be recognized. That should always be put into a better light, a better perspective, and also should be just really highlighted and just admired. So shout out to you for putting that work in and just accomplishing everything you have. And I know that you're gonna take it somewhere. Like a lot of time with these degrees, especially nowadays, they don't go as far as maybe you want to, but I feel like it's the person with the talent behind it that makes it go somewhere. I really feel like you're gonna take it somewhere. So believe you me, we're gonna be riding with you. We're gonna be supporting you all the way, regardless of what you do with it. So shout out to you for pulling that off. PSP, bro, almost 100K. Like shout out to you too, man. Just been putting this work in, whether it's the clips and the videos, not only of Champ but myself, getting us out there, getting us some notoriety, getting us some newly found secret fans who love and adore us with each and every loving and supporting comment. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. BA is busy. Let me tell you something. I feel like if you're not doing what you need to do, it's a good thing that if people are supporting your stuff and saying, oh, you making good points. But I feel like you ain't really doing your job if you ain't got some people out there saying, boy, what the hell are you talking about? Debate's good. Debate is good for the soul. Even if you know you right, debating is good for the soul. But it's always a pleasure being on here every Friday night. It's a pleasure putting myself out there, and just like Champ tells you, like the way you feel, the way Champ feels about you as far as putting him on the map. Like there would be no Undisputed GOAT Sports podcast without you. There would really be no expansion of BRL Sports without Champ, because Champ helped put me out there with the TikTok lives after the football slates every Sunday. We would, and same thing with Flash. Like it was me and Champ, and then Flash came in, and then all of a sudden it became the Undisputed GOAT Sports podcast. And over a year later, we still rocking, and we starting to gain traction, and it's like a beautiful thing to see. And I'm blessed to even have the opportunity to do stuff like this. So I take nothing for granted. I appreciate every minute I get talking about this stuff and being able to enjoy it. And I just want to tell all y'all, the link tree is in the bio. BRF Sports is the TikTok handle. The link tree is in the bio. You can follow all of my pages that I go through, whether it's my IG, my Twitter /X, my Facebook. Just show me love, but also follow these two brothers, man, because they are two of the best minds that the sports content world got to offer. So follow these brothers as well, and we just gonna continue to do it. And as I always say, and I got to leave you with the words of wisdom: a topic not thought about is a topic not talked about.
Absolutely. Like you said, guys, almost at 95,000. We're a little over 93,000, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm very happy, very pleased with the progress of Sports PSP, especially with all the clips and stuff that we put out on IG and TikTok and YouTube. We're getting a lot of views. We're getting a lot of comments, good or bad, but at the same time, hey, people are paying attention to our content. And when you see other people paying attention to our content as well, that kind of lets you know that, hey, we're doing a damn good job. People are actually watching us. So when they see us with our content and when they talk about it, that lets us know, hey, we mean something. And I want to thank everyone. Of course, Brandon from the Block. Shout out to Brandon from the Block, because he was the one who started with the group chat to get all of us on. Shout out to Brandon from the Block. Please go check out his podcast every Mondays. Please go like and subscribe to his content. Also, shout out to Casual. Hopefully, we'll get Casual back in for basketball. Shout out to him, High Take Kenny, Broad Sports, Mario Knows Best, Harrison, Luis Knows Tunes, Certified Chris, a lot of them. Thank y'all for collaborating, also being contributors as well to the Sports PSP pod, also with Roundup as well. Just want to thank again Mama PSP for everything that she's done for me. Champ, if you want to know more vocabulary skills, contact Mama PSP, because Mama PSP is a lawyer. She knows how to articulate and express herself. So if you want them vocabulary skills, talk to her. I mean, she's been telling me from the get-go to read, and look, hey, reading does make a tremendous difference. I mean, I wouldn't get to this point had I not put in the effort, but also at the same time, man, Champ, like you say about your moms, that's how my mom's is. I mean, so shout out to Mama PSP. Again, happy Women's Month. Shout out to my girl Kaylin. I will see you at the office soon. Shout out to Angie. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to D, who is like a big sister to me. I love you. Thank you for everything that you do for me. And also, last person I want to thank you to Jennifer Lazarus, who's one of my favorite college professors. Thank you for showing me how to use social media, showing me how to learn how to use podcasts. Thank you for also showing me that I am a lot more than what I think I am, because sometimes I don't think I'm that good as a content creator, stuff like that. But thank you again for just showing me that you mean something. You have a good voice. Use it. So thank you to everyone who's helped me out along the way. Y'all stay safe. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all weekend. Please stay safe. Please stay responsible. And peace. Peace, man. Enjoy the rest of the